people. I'm here. Sorry for the semi-late start. Yeah. Stuff comes up, gotta do other things. It's not always fun, but it's necessary. I'm here now. Getting into the stuff that I'm really interested in, so... let's just get started. It's gonna be a pretty straightforward stream. Not gonna be super long. I'm just gonna be doing rapid-fire replays until we're done. It probably is gonna be, 2.5, 3 hours. It's usually about how long these typically go for. So, strap in. Enjoy it. You don't have to watch through the whole thing. Any and all attention is appreciated, so... take it in at your own pace. Yeah, let me just make sure I got everything, too. Because sometimes people pop replays in a little bit after the fact. Like this one here. Let me make sure I've got this one in my replays folder. Dude. I did not. Perfect. Okay. So we've done a few of these. I'm going to try to not recover a whole bunch of the replays we've already done. Where are we at? Actually, don't think we watched this one. Or this. Definitely didn't see Double War Hydra. This is a duplicate. Okay, sweet. So we'll just start here. We got freaking Double War Hydra coming up against the Skaven here. Lord is Deathcaster with Doom and Darkness and Purple Son of Xerius. That's an interesting spell combo. Purple Son of Xerius honestly does pretty good damage. It'll be really good against Stormvermin Halberds. Typically, Fate of Buna is a little more consistent. Like, one Fate of Buna will take about half the HP off of Stormvermin, but the Purple Son of Xerius is a little bit more of a, like, a high ceiling on the amount of damage that can cap out at. Just because Vortexes tend to move pretty randomly, spread out over a pretty large area. If your opponent's blobbing too aggressively, you can really punish that. Which can be really good in against lots of newer players, because they haven't learned the lessons of not blobbing from personal pain and experience. It falls off a little bit at the higher levels, but you can catch people off guards. I honestly like mixing it up with spell choices oftentimes. I think that you can definitely experiment and find opportunities to use fairly like off-meta spells to really good effect oftentimes. So we'll see about it. We got some Harpies up in the sky, too. Harpies, I honestly don't think are that bad of a unit. You don't see them too terribly often. They're just a little bit, they're a little outclassed by, like, Furies, but they're fairly similar in some ways. I mean, the unit models are actually, the Fury models are actually, re-skinned Harpies, believe it or not. They've got the same, weapon strength, like the Khorne, Furies, and these Harpies do at least. It's really in the melee attack department that the Harpies fall behind a little bit. Just because they've only got 22 melee attack, they don't really get in there and chew through stuff all that well. Their melee defense is really high, though, so they're great against more expensive missile pieces that you want to lock down for an extended period of time. They're pretty reasonable. Dark Riders coming out. Double War Hydra hanging in here, and some Dread Spears getting absolutely hammered by the, the Poisonwind Mortars here. Really punishing those guys quite badly. Taking a good, like, 20-25% of their HP out, and second volley incoming. Looking fairly accurate. I mean, actually making some pretty decent contact with these guys. Really, it's the damage over time that does the good balance of damage for the Poisonwind Mortars. War Hydra really getting focused down here by this Night Runner core. Can't be too slow with your big SCs. Big SCs are risky, not necessarily because they're bad, but because they require tons of micro. And you don't want to let them just get pounded like they are right now from all three of these little Ninja Star units. Their damage isn't truly devastating, but, you know, War Hydras hit their healing cap pretty quickly. And Skaven are a good enough shooting faction that they can probably pressure this guy down pretty hard if they're given enough of an opportunity to sit back and just value trade at range. It really is up to the Dark Elves to be getting up in this Skaven's face. They lose one Dread Spear early on. Not amazing for the Dark Elves. They get a really good breath attack here. Wow, look at the damage to those Rat Ogres. And we get a Terror Route on one of the Night Runners. Little bit of an opportunity for the Dark Elves. I was about to say, these Furies really need to get up in here. Got the Dark Riders going after the Wolf Rats. I'm not sure what they're charging, honestly. They're just going in hardcore, though. They do get a little bit of a rear charge on the Clan Rats. You can see the Wolf Rats' leadership is just terrible. They got attacked in the rear, and they're basically about to break. They should rally here, although their leadership is just dipping so freaking low. The Hydras getting up in here would definitely break them. Poison Wind Mortars are not occupied. This is a big mistake. This is why you need to be careful with your flyers, and you gotta make sure that your micro is, like, pinpoint with these type of units. Forgetting about them and just leaving these Poison Wind Globadiers to just get a fat volley on the Cold One Knights is a massive down trade for the Dark Elves here. It's a very expensive unit. It's 1,000 gold. It's not like the end of the world if it doesn't do amazingly, but it's just getting hammered here. Only 72 value on a unit this expensive. Usually not something that you can really afford. And this is why I'm always, this is why I harp on it a fair amount. It's been a little while since I've talked about it, but using your cavalry for really aggressive dives early in games is oftentimes a very bad idea. Because people have, like, the most active defense against back pressure early on, because they still have a front line that's holding back your infantry. And then they're only worrying about, like, a handful of units, and they can really focus in on, like, locking those out of position and punishing them with just a couple of really good volleys from their other missile units. Typically, like, what you would really want to do is the Dark Elves here with this Cold One Knight. It doesn't have a lot of targets on the field. Like, it's just, like, all infantry-sized stuff. You've got pretty healthy War Hydras out on the field. Like, one of them is occupying a lot of attention down here. You got Throt, you got Storm Vermin, Rat Ogres, and the Rat Ogre summoned from Throt as well down here. This War Hydra can push up into the secondary. It can, like, fight here, where it's going to be, like, fairly tanky. Poison Wind Globes don't do great SC damage. So War Hydra can sit in here and just cause massive leadership problems for the Skaven. You do have to worry about the Eshin Triads, but you still have the Terror Routes available. And, you know, Skaven don't really have a lot of units with Frenzy or ITP of any type. You very rarely see the ROR Sensor Bearers who can imbue the immune to psychology on everything around them. Using your big single entities to, like, soak up missile fire and then counter-punching with the Cold One Knights is really what you want to be doing here. Like, this Cold One Knight's actually getting in a pretty good position here. It's going to get a nice charge through the Clan Rats, like, breaking through the front line, and finally getting on the weapon teams. It's tying up 2 weapon teams at once, as well as a Rat Ogre. It's going to take a lot of damage, but it should get fairly good value here. Harpies breaking, you know, their leadership just isn't amazing. It really sucks when they can't hang in for long. And this is generally why you don't see them too often, you know. It's just like the very mediocre leadership and damage output. It's better to kill stuff than to just be able to lock it down. But they are able to sit on top of the Cold One Knights here, which is really good. Comboing with ground-based tools is how you maximize flying units and back pressure with your cavalry and mobility. These guys are going to do a lot better hanging in together here than they were doing separately. So the Dark Elves get a big win on this flank, and they do take a little bit of a lead. Now, the lead may not seem all that amazing, considering the state of the battlefield in the infantry department, because the Dark Elves are pretty far behind on the numbers side of things. They do have a lot of terror, though, and some very solid single entities. And pushing back the Globadiers, The mortars, a lot of the tools that could be punishing infantry means that the Dark Elves are going to have a much better time developing that out in the late game. And as long as these single entities and the cavalry aren't just YOLO'd in and left to get karate chopped by what the Skaven have left on the field, the Dark Elves should be in a winning position now. Throt is a really good lord. He's got some good combat potential, but he can't carry for the Skaven. And we've got a Warp Starcaster here. Not prepared for the big single entities. Warp Stars is good at sniping characters. And it does look like the Supreme Sorceress has been getting hit by some of these magic shurikens. It's going to take a little while to finish her off, though, which is what I'm really worried about for the Skaven. War Hydra gets another heal. Another takes its place is just so good. They already have passive regeneration, which means they're already fairly tanky and capable of healing themselves up and hanging in. But just getting a 12% burst heal every 60 seconds when they get below 50% is awesome. It's genuinely one of the best heals in the game as long as you don't let them break. And that's really where the War Hydras are very well balanced, is the leadership department. They've only got 65 base. That's pretty respectable for a big monster, but 65 can leave a little bit to be desired sometimes. Especially if your opponent is like dropping leadership malices on stuff like this. Getting good like side and rear charges. Look at these freaking breath attacks, dude. Beautiful stuff from I think this is a Polish pronounced name. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I'd love to actually know how to pronounce this appropriately, but Pont is doing a really great job of punishing some of the blobs now. A few of the Purple Suns have been a little bit haphazard, haven't done a lot of damage, but that one was beautiful. That breath attack in the middle has broken down a lot of the Skaven infantry. Skaven are all over the points, though. Dark Elves really need some infantry up. We've got a Blackheart Corsair moving forward, some Bleak Swords or Dread Spears, just some cheap stuff to help out what mobility is left on the field would be huge. Cold Wind Chariots, honestly I feel I've tried Chariots against the Skaven, and they oftentimes are pretty disappointing because just the bodies that Skaven can throw out on the field can get a little overwhelming, and it can be very hard to like maximize their value. They need to pull away from Throt here, because he will beat them down pretty badly, but Dread Spears, Blackheart Corsairs, oh, more Dread Spears, actually. Where are the Blackheart Corsairs going? Where the hell are they? They've, like, vanished from the field here. Oh, they're in the trees. Slowly making their way up to the number 3. We need to see some caps from the Dark Elves soon. It's okay if you've got a decent little value lead, and against a low leadership faction like the Skaven, if you can solidify just a double cap, and you've got, you know, like 300 seconds or so to work on the last one, you know, that's a long time to try and hold one objective, even if you are within range to where you can hunker down on one. It's very hard to hold 1 point for like 5 minutes, which is, you know, about how long you'd have to do it if the Dark Elves get a double cap with about 1,200 tickets for the Skaven here. Coldwood Dread Knights. Coldwood Dread Knights doing pretty well. They are getting charged down by Wolf Rats. They're fighting some Dwarf Thing Menaces. Oh, and the Eshin Triads are in here. Pretty brutal fight for them, but they have gotten respectable value already. Where'd the other Cold One Knight go? It must have just gotten killed, because there was a Cold One Knight out here that had 1,300 value, and I just checked on it a minute ago. Doing pretty nicely. Yeah, the Cold One Chariot's really letting the side down, honestly. Dark Elves are flipping the number 2. Flipped the number 1, huge for them. They've just got to get one more objective now. It is pretty even when you look at the values up top here, but the Skaven don't have any healing, and we've gotten a ton of healing on the Hydras. Both of them are healing capped. They are fairly expensive. And yeah, their value isn't crazy. This one's only gotten 300 value. But it's probably contributed some terror routes. It's soaked up a ton of fire and attention and damage, which arguably just as important as actually doing damage sometimes. There's like two ways that a unit can like really get some massive value. It's either by just outright killing stuff or by providing a lot of battlefield support and utility. And the War Hydras with the Terror, as well as the sustainability, have really been doing a great job. And there's a really good breath attack. About 20% of the HP off of a Rat Ogre really isn't anything to turn your nose up at. Rat Ogres have poor leadership. If they take a little bit more damage here, like this Dark Rider charge should do a decent amount of work against them. And with the Terror from the War Hydra, these guys might be going down here pretty quickly. And they get punished hard for trying to retreat away from stuff. Scourge Runners coming forward. Scourge Runners tend to be better than the Cold One Chariots, just because they're cheaper. And they've got a way better missile profile. Whoa, what was that, dude? Oh, that was Warp Star. What a great cast. Wow. Okay, so flank shots with Warp Star. Obviously very powerful. Getsbane with a few more of those might have been in a little bit of a better position. Oh, really sneaky. Get some Night Runners up, and the Dark Elf player not paying enough attention over here loses the Dark Riders, and the Skaven going to sneak this point away. That's going to draw a lot of attention out from Pont, who doesn't have a ton of supplies to work with right now. Getsbane building up a little bit of a critical mass of supplies. On the Scourge Runner Chariots, just getting thrown up into spears and getting dragged down. Brutal, dude. Dread Spears are stuffing back a lot of cap weight. The Dark Elves maybe going to be able to take this away. It's just Throt here. The Cavalry move up onto it. The War Hydra going to be able to smack Throt up pretty badly. They don't have fire damage, fortunately, for Throt, you know, since he is vulnerable to that type of damage thanks to his regeneration. But vice versa, he's not going to be very effective against this thing. He's got a little bit of room on his healing cap for his own self. And he is going to be pulling out of here. Looks like he's going to be trying to rally elsewhere on the battle. Triads and the Night Runners and the Eshin here are going to have a really hard time holding this point. So here's a really important thing to do. These guys are just off the point here. Literally, like the blue line is all that separates them. Just squeak them over a little bit. And make sure that one edge of the formation is on the point. That way your cap weight isn't flipping ahead of time. It helps a lot in really close games. This is a surprisingly close game. I thought it was going to swing really hard one way or the other, but both of these guys coming in here, scrappy as hell. There were so many good games from this tournament, too. Sometimes, just in all tournaments in general, they can swing back and forth, or be really lopsided, and just like every single game that people were sending me from this tourney was an absolute, like, brawl. Just wire-to-wire combat in close games. But I do think the Dark Elves are going to get this one. Provided, of course, they actually, I think it is still triple cap territory. Oh my god, it is. So Dark Elves do have to get all of the points. They need to hold this for at least 90 seconds with a triple cap, although I don't think they can give it up at all now. Skaven should probably just send everything over here now. It's they've got 150 seconds that they need to hold this. You know, I said it that like 1,200 tickets holding for 300 seconds is a little bit too much to ask. 150 is much more reasonable. 2.5 minutes. Skaven are a good enough like cap weight faction that they can very feasibly accomplish this. Not a lot of people clock this when they're new. And it's something that, you know, it's very easy to forget about. Clan Rats have 5 cap weight. They're a full cap weight unit for 300. They can be really annoying. It can be really annoying to triple cap the Skaven because they can throw so many bodies out. And I've said it before. I'll say it again. That's why Skaven Vermintide builds oftentimes are so dangerous. Because they can just throw so much cap weight out on the field. It can be really hard to like break them down before you run out of time on the tickets, especially if it's a close game like this. Skaven have fallen behind on the value now, but they have nothing over here, and a really unfortunate tear route on the Harpies is freeing up the Night Runners. There's only a few Dread Spears here with a handful of Dark Riders. These Dread Spears, I think, tear routed and then got hit just enough on their leadership that they actually are falling back now. they're not going to be able to get up in this point in time, and the Dark Elves really need some more stuff over here. This War Hydra really needs to just scream down here, because it takes 20 seconds to flip caps. Clan Rats get up on the point, more Clan Rats on the way in. They're getting beaten up by the Harpies. The Harpies are actually doing fairly good damage to them. Dark Riders and the Cold One Knights taking some poke. Are they going to be able to flip this cap? The cap weight's finally going for the Dark Elves, but the Clan Rats getting up on this objective, man, and I think that the Skaven are going to be coming back from a really awful position there in the early late game. To be able to flip this back, this sneaky back cap, dude, with the Night Runners paying off in the long term as they're able to just sneak a bunch of units up here and get that cap weight going for themselves, stopping the momentum of the Dark Elves, just keeping them bogged down endlessly on these other objectives too. Just being able to throw up lots of cheap units and distract your opponent. And you know, you can always get a triple cap, but sometimes because the Skaven had so many tickets, it's kind of hard to leave objectives undefended sometimes. And you know, the Skaven have lots of stalks, so it can be a little hazardous, like leaving them completely undefended, because the last thing you want is to move all your stuff off and not notice a stalked unit coming out, and then they get up on the point, and then because you thought nothing was coming over here, you're not prepared at all to respond to it, and that can be really painful. So Dark Elves having to leave a bunch of stuff on these objectives, ending up being the death sentence for them. Maybe being able to hold on to the, maybe being able to hold on to 1 point earlier in the game would have been just enough to give them the time to work with to get the cap at the end. But it was really, really well played regardless. Crazy cool build. And I mean, you can see stuff like this works, dude. If your execution is good, and the War Hydras were used really well, one of them paid for itself. The other not quite, but the amount of damage they soaked up, I would say they got their value. The breath attacks and the terror routes were also really, really well utilized. And just running out of time was the unfortunate element there for the poor Dark Elves. They'll be back, though. A little bit more practice with this build. I think that you could very feasibly use this against the Skaven, because Skaven don't often bring tons of weapon teams nowadays. They really rely on their like Globadiers and like slings to get a lot of value. And Terror in general is really good against the Skaven, so maybe some more single entity like monster builds with like durable stuff like the War Hydras who can self-heal might be a very viable strategy against them for the foreseeable future. What's up, Asmid? Ideas for Demons of Chaos. Demons of Chaos are a funky faction, dude. We can talk about them for a sec, before we get into any of the other replays. They're very expensive. Like, the Lords almost all across the board are costly. Like, your cheapest option is the Heralds. Heralds of Tzeentch are just great Lords in general. They've got, you know, two of the strongest Lords of Magic. Like, Tzeentch magic is very powerful. You've got Pink Fire, Blue Fire, pretty reasonable cheap spells. Blue Fire especially for Lord sniping. And even dual purposing against infantry is really nice. You do need to cast it from long range, because it's got some funky animations that make it miss if you're casting from too close to something. That needs to be remembered, but it's very cost-effective. And Infernal Gateway is the best Vortex spell in the game. I would go so far as to say it one-shots just about everything in the game. If it doesn't have spell resistance, and it's an infantry unit, it's dead. It's awesome for that. So if you think your opponent's going elite, you can bring this in the back pocket. But then Metal Magic is Searing Doom, Plague Arrest, and Final Transmutation. So if you want to go wide with the Demons of Chaos, you bring this guy and just bring whichever Lore of Magic you want. Chromatic Tome gives you a little bit of extra Winds of Magic. You know, 2.7 every time you use it. It's on a really short cooldown also. It does have a miscast chance, But if you just keep this guy on the back line and just let the barrier take the punishment from the miscast, he's never really going to be in any kind of danger. He is very squishy. He's only got 4,000 HP. You cannot let this Lord get caught, but it gives you a lot more opportunities to bring like lots of bloodletters and a more solid front line, because typically the Demons of Chaos have amazing cavalry. They've got great monster options, and the missiles are pretty untouchable, like the Changebringers. Flamers are here too. Exalted Flamer, Angels of Decay, even like the Hellforged Bellowers and stuff. You really can't go wrong there. That's really where the strength of the Demons of Chaos is in the value trade department at the ranged elements of the matches. As well as like Seekers, you know. But the infantry are pretty flimsy. There's no armor here. Absolutely nothing has armor. Like the highest armor unit has 60 armor, and that's the Hellforged Host, and they're 1,500 gold. They're freaking expensive. You have to be very careful not to let your infantry get folded up by shooting tools, which is really why the missile game is so important for the Demons of Chaos, because typically they want to wear out their opponent's missile units and then send their very expensive infantry to go and just like can open or whatever enemy units are left on the field. So they're not very beginner friendly. You need to play to their strengths, which is their mobility and the like good shooting units like the Changebringers and stuff. Kite game is pretty good with them, but you can also go with more expensive lords and really focus in on like lord sniping opportunities. In controlling the mobile game with, like, you know, good Pavane casts, or you can go with, honestly, Be'lakor is not terrible. He's really expensive. But you can just bring his heal and Whispers in the Darkness, as well as Shadow Shroud, and then Melkoths, and honestly, 3,300 for a lord this strong, with a decent amount of survivability, on a roster with so much speed, can be pretty devastating, because he can just cast Melkoths all game and hit pretty much any target and just wear it out fairly effectively. Melkoths is really only bad against single entities. It's good against cavalry, especially. Like using it on, say, a Seeker is like uber cost effective, but it can do good damage to like infantry as well. You don't want to cast it on, what would be the worst kind of... Don't want to cast it on something that's like a Flamer with like 12 models in the unit. Like monstrous infantry and single entities are a big no-no for it. But you can always just duel those guys with Be'lakor. I think he's sneakily strong, and he removes ITP, so he can really be a menace to just about every faction in the game, like dive bombing and terror routing otherwise really solid units. There's a lot to like there. And then you can always use like Exalted Keepers. The Exalted Lords of Change are pretty good. Zarovich is another really good option, because he's got a Snare, the Gaze of Fate. That combos really well with those tools that I've been talking about, like the Changebringers and the Flamers and the Angels of Decay type of damage output. And then he's, you know, got his own, like, decent little spell kit here. There's a lot to play around with. You just really need to experiment with them and be sure that you are careful with your engagements. Because, like I said, very squishy across the board. Nothing has a lot of armor, so your durability and sustained grinds is pretty poor. Demons like to build up, and they like to win decisive engagements and really ping-pong their opponent around the battlefield. They tend to be really high micro. Yeah, that's right. The Herald is also got that going against him on the Demons of Chaos. That is a really good point, because he is really good at doing damage early with the spells, but since the army abilities for Demons of Chaos charge, based purely on the damage that your lords are doing, you do typically want something with some pretty good damage output. So the Herald of Tzeentch is really strong early and then falls off in a bit in the late game. But, you know, that's where, like, Be'lakor can really come in, because he's just an absolute bastard in combat. He does so much damage. He's so efficient. He's strong. He can duel anything in the game. He can beat just about anything in the game. As long as you micro him around and take your engagements when he's got Shadow Shroud up, he'll be pretty much impossible to kill. You want to use Shadow Shroud when you're trying to go for like an alpha strike on an enemy's combat characters or lords, or if you just need them to like land in the back line and deal with some kind of like really annoying unit, and you know you're gonna get shot or you're gonna have an enemy unit countercharging you. This keeps him alive for forever. And then he does have that little passive heal for Lord of Torment. You want to cut as many abilities as possible though, just because he is already pretty expensive. But I've used him before and had good success, and I think this is his strongest roster. Honestly, he's okay on the Warriors of Chaos, but the Warriors of Chaos usually want to go with like Archaon, who's a little cheaper and is a little bit better at clearing out big chaff armies, which the Warriors of Chaos are honestly not amazing at. Demons of Chaos can fight chaff pretty well, provided you don't just like YOLO into their army. If you take your time and like pick those big armies apart, you've got enough terror and like high DPS units, you can usually kill them. It's a very long answer, but just, you know, experiment is the most important thing, because you can listen to people tell you how to play something all day, but until you actually get in there and practice the execution, it's just gonna be fluff, basically. Yeah, the shooting and the war wagons, those are unfortunate matchups. Empire has the shooting to like punish your own shooting pretty good, and the Greenskins just bring so many bodies and they have their own decent archer play. That can be a little bit intimidating. Soul Grinders of Tzeentch are actually fairly decent against war wagons. You have to focus the wagons down though, because oftentimes war wagons get healed up by the life magic. Don't ask how a life caster heals a wagon. It's not important, but just know that they can for some reason. You have to kill the models. That's the most important thing, because that's the real damage output. Like, doing HP damage to melee units is perfectly acceptable. Like, they don't have to lose tons of models. It's nice if they do, just because, you know, less stuff in combat actually hitting you, but because damage sustained lowers leadership so much, that's, like, really good for breaking them. Just getting raw damage on units like this, but for missile units, you have to kill models. Because it doesn't matter if they've lost, say this Peasant Archer loses, like, 3/4 of its HP. If it's got 90 models left at that point, I mean, it's basically at full health, you know? I mean, its damage output, it really hasn't been that reduced. It's a lot less proportional, so you just need to be a lot more deliberate in killing missile units, which is why I typically say don't dive them so early. You know, you want to get as much damage on the front line early, and then pull units out of position and really threaten your opponent, and make them start to panic and reposition their missile units in the early game. And then, when you dive them, you want to make sure that you can kill them in one good go. It's kind of like a death thrust, is how you can think about it. You know? Think about, especially against an army like Cathay, this is a perfect example. Like, think of the opponent's formation as like a set of armor. Like, the vulnerable parts are like gaps in their formations, where you can like flood units past their melee and onto the missile units, without having to like flank all the way around and get shot in the process. You want to take the shortest possible route through to missile units, while being able to support those dive tools by occupying your opponent's other elements. So, like, peeling through and getting up into the missile unit, and then having some other stuff that can, like, flood through to the backline to occupy things that are trying to kill the unit engaged on the unit trying to kill the missile piece, is the best way to, like, wombo combo stuff like that. And, you know, you don't have to, like, deal direct damage to pull your opponent's formations apart. Oftentimes, if you get right up in somebody's face with a unit, and then just, like, run away with your infantry unit, people give attack orders to their infantry all the time, because getting countercharges is pretty important in melee fights, because you might not think that infantry charge bonus matters all that much, because the values are pretty low, but because there's so many models piling in, it often makes a big difference as to what is going to actually win the frontline fight. So if your opponent gives a countercharge order and then you're running away, oftentimes people won't clock it, and then they run a bunch of units out of position, and then you can just walk in and beat the crap out of them through the gap that they leave in the front line. It's something that was done historically, too, you know? Like, that's traditionally how the... That's like the historical, what's the word? That's the historical consensus for how the Battle of Hastings was won by William the Conqueror. They were, like, fighting the, they were fighting all of these dudes up on this giant hill in a fixed infantry formation. They had a big shield wall going, and William's knights, being mounted, couldn't, like, bust through the infantry, so they were taking bad casualties, but they faked a charge, and then they pretended to be retreating, and the infantry formation lost discipline, and they moved down the hill, and then these big gaps opened up in the army, and then the knights just flooded around and surrounded them and killed them all. And then that's obviously how William the Bastard went from being a little bit, having a little bit of an undignified name to, you know, something a little more regal. There's lots of cool little tactical things you can do. You can honestly read something like The Art of War and take this kind of lessons and apply them to this game. Which is one of the reasons why, like, the Total War series has always been so appealing to me, personally. Because it just gives you the right kind of scale to be able to play out those kind of scenarios in real time. Getting into the actual fight, Mao Ying going up into her dragon form, doesn't have any spells to cast from it. She really should have some magic. Maybe she's got Earthblood, she'll go back into human form in a bit. The Hell Cannon is just pounding away. It's doing a ton of damage, but it does friendly fire a little bit when your infantry units engage. You need to be careful about shooting into stuff that's, like, already fighting in melee combat, because the way that the shots land, they, like, flatten out at the end of the arc, and oftentimes it'll just plow into the back of your own dudes, like right here. It kills, like, a handful of their own warriors. You should really use the Hell Cannons to, like, right now, the Hell Cannon should be focusing the missile pieces. Because there's, like, no investment to that, you know? It's a billion miles away. There's absolutely no threat. Your warriors are already going to eventually win the frontline fight, just making it a little bit less likely that they get shot to pieces is really where the Hell Cannon should, like, focus in. But, you know, it's unfortunate, but not the end of the world. Beautiful shot there. Does a ton of damage to those poor peasants. Oh my god. Pounding them terribly. Archeon getting in against Mao Ying, who is going to be retreating. She does take some pretty serious casualties. Or some pretty serious HP damage, you know. She's not loving life there. Archeon getting up into the Peasant Spears, not the worst position to be in, and she does have regrowth. Okay. So she's going to be going for some heals on herself. Peasant Archer's getting hammered, and Tommy doing a pretty good job of swapping targets with the Soul of Damnation, which is pretty important. Oftentimes. So the thing about this, it's got a ton of ammo, which is awesome, but it fires so quickly. Oftentimes, it kills targets so fast that if you're not on top of your micro, you can waste a bunch of ammunition shooting something that's already running away, when you could be focusing something else and wearing it out. Good Plague of Rust, that Astromancer, or the Alchemist, sorry. giving an opportunity for the peasant archers to grind some value out against the halberds. So the Warriors of Chaos, they're in a pretty good spot right now. There's really not a whole lot they need to do. They've kind of beaten the Grand Cathay army just in the build phase. This is a pretty tough matchup for Cathay, just because Archaon can, like, Burning Head their backline really aggressively. They lose pretty badly because of Chaos Warriors just being so much stronger of a unit than the Jade Warriors are typically. I've got good Combat Lords, too, for the Dragon guys. And this Hell Cannon, man, just pounding away at the Peasant Archers is great. But leaving your Halberds just to sit back here and just get shot for free is not great. They could just go over here to hang on to this point to dissuade any cavalry from trying to steal that away from you. It's a little bit harder to shoot stuff that's engaged in actual fighting in the front lines, so leaving them out here, they've just taken a ton of unnecessary damage. Again, like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but just bleeding away a bunch of value is never ideal. Typically, you just want units to get something for their cost. Even if your trades aren't always the most ideal, just the fact that, like, a unit is getting, like, half of its cost back can make all the difference in the world for winning games. Because it means that at the very least, your other units that are in good fights don't have to do nearly as much to make up the difference for other units not performing well. Grand Cathay has been struggling a little bit, but it seems like they might be on the upswing now. The Chaos Warriors have actually been getting hammered enough by the Peasant Archers, and then just worn down because of the extra combat stats from the Zhangu War Drum. This Disdain of the Dragon Emperor gives the extra melee attack in such a big radius that these halberds are actually beating the Chaos Warriors in a one-on-one fight right now. You can see the stats comparison here. Jade Warriors with much better melee attack at this stage of the battle right now, and better melee defense with that AP. They've actually been able to grind down these Chaos Warriors, and the value lead is nice for the Warriors of Chaos, but since they've got such an expensive artillery piece back here, you know, functionally the way you can think of this, really, artillery, the reason why it's strong in domination mode, but it doesn't just dominate the meta, despite its ability to value trade so well, is because they are, you know, functionally useless at holding points. So, you've got like 1,550 gold back here. If you really want to think about what kind of actual value it needs to really affect the front line, it's usually going to need to get like 2,000 plus for it to have really been impactful. Because, you know, you can unsummon it and it'll give you about 1,200 in return. But if you've lost all your infantry in the meantime, and your opponent's like just walking up and capping all the points, kind of like what Cathay is doing right now, it's going to be a lot harder to get back into this game than otherwise might have been earlier. And it's especially going to suck if you don't get the money back from the Soul of Damnation. Like, if these Onyx Crowmen kill the crew, that's a lot of gold value that the Warriors of Chaos are essentially leaving off the table. So, Artie can be a little bit of a risky investment. And another thing that the Warriors of Chaos could have done is just not engage on his Zhangu War Drum. It's very rarely a good idea to engage Cathay's boxes, which is why I was talking about pulling apart these very infantry-heavy formations. Like, Warriors of Chaos, they just walk up onto the number 2 and the number 1, and they just fight off to the side and force Cathay to make hard decisions about when, where, and how they're going to move this very, very static formation to go cap other objectives. Because if they send everything off to the number 2, you just leave the number 2 and you go to back to the other side, where they've abandoned this point now. If they leave, like, half their force here, and they send the other half here, if the Zhanggu War Drum goes to one side, you just engage on the other. If it stays here, you just engage the infantry that move up to this side. You know, Zhao Ming is trying to heal the expensive units here that are giving the Jade Warriors better fights. And it's really paid off in the long term because despite having a value lead, the Warriors of Chaos, they haven't really gotten any kind of local advantage anywhere. Like, they're doing it okay of shooting stuff off the number 2 here. It's going to take a little while to wear this out. But Mao Ying, she did get beat up early by Archeon, but Archeon's the one on death's bed now. He's not really going to be able to do much the rest of this battle, while Mao Ying is just beating up on the Manticore. She'll be able to find another fight where she'll be able to get some good value. Archeon getting pounded by the cannon here. Good late game summon. Oh no, and flank shots onto the Rotting Riders is going to be devastating. Because these guys have good HP, but getting hit by the cannons, they do so much damage, they will actually just kill models outright. And that's devastating for them, because pretty reliant on the regeneration to keep them in combat for prolonged periods of time. Cannon's gonna open up. God, they take so long for them to reload, which is their big problem. They're also obstructed by the Peasant Horsemen now. Not that big of a deal. Cathay has got a pretty dominant stranglehold on the points. This is pretty painful here. Looks like maybe a Horseman or something was trying to cap this point. Oh, a Warhound was, and then the Onyx Crowman, the Empress Crowman, killed the Hound unit and kept them from capping this. Caps are looking real grim for the Warriors now, especially for how many Cathay units are left on the battlefield, and how little infantry and capture weight is available for the Warriors. Now they're throwing a lot of Hounds out, and that's a really bad sign, typically, for most people. The last thing you want to be doing is summoning out really low leadership stuff to try and cap objectives. Hounds are good in really small numbers because they can just run up real quick and cap something and then, like, chase things off. That's really all they're good at, though. If you're trying to summon them in the late game to cap points and then expecting them to fight in combat and hold objectives, that's where they fall off really hard. Cannon does get compromised. Didn't get enough opportunities to shoot the Rotting Riders. The Rotting Riders are doing great back here. The Crane Gunners, wow, this Crane Gunner unit, dude. How did I not notice them getting 3,000 value until now? My god. Beautiful micro on them, obviously. Just focus firing all of the dangerous Warrior of Chaos units on the field. And helping push back this very expensive unit, which is value traded back, but again, not enough caps going on here for the Warriors. Grand Cathay doesn't really want to let this point get capped yet. Like, they're in triple cap range, where they can just sit on one if they want to, but holding on to this other one wouldn't be a bad idea. Mostly just because it lessens the amount of time they have to hold on one. It can be really, like I said, it can be really difficult holding for, like, you know, 5 or 6 minutes on a single cap. Just waiting that game out. Jade Lancer's getting overwhelmed. It's been held on to fairly well by just the Onyx Crowman and the Jade Lancers. You can probably spare one of these halberds to go over here. You've got, like, enough tattered infantry here that you've got maybe, like... You've probably got, like, 16 cap weight here without this halberd on the field. How much you got? You got 2.1 here, 1.6, 1.4, 0.8, 2.3, and then you got 3 from each of these. You've got about 12 cap weight without that halberd. You can just send them over there, and they could just anchor on that point and have helped the Jade Lancers and the Empress's Crowman and stuff a little bit more. It would have been really nice. I do kind of understand leaving them here, though. There's nothing wrong with it, per se. Cathay just needs to not lose their mobility. And they need to just make sure that they keep their few remaining missile units on station, so they provide the harmony. as well as get a little bit more value and push back some of the like horsemen and punish the Hellstriders who are pretty annoying. Just performing roles like that for holding into the late game and shutting out the Warriors of Chaos here. It's really good Cathay play, though. I'm honestly very impressed. Very disciplined. Really good harmony stacking, as well as disciplined positioning on the Xiongnu War Drum. Like, it's hitting just about everything here. And in fact, I think it is. Nice. Hell yes. Spacing and positioning is another really underappreciated, impactful area of, like, battlefield tactics for domination mode. Hellstriders moving up. Horsemen, just so many horsemen. You do need the triple cap, so you're kind of pigeonholed at this point to engage this formation. It just sucks that the Warriors of Chaos didn't focus these points early, and then put Cathay in the position to push out, because that would have been the much easier winning play for the Warriors of Chaos, as opposed to getting into this point in the game where they're having to re-engage onto a formation that already just ground them into dirt once. Probably going to do it again, honestly. Severed Claw coming in here. They get hit by Plague of Rust, and Mao Ying hanging down in here. Popping another regrowth on herself. She's got an okay value. 1100. It's not terrible. Just having a Lord that can hang out on the battlefield the entire match sometimes is really all you need. Chaos Warriors getting up here. The Warriors of Chaos should maybe will do a little bit better now that they got some infantry out, but look at this. Zettern being a real devious fella here. The second infantry start hard pushing this point. That's when the cavalry come out to cap the number 1s and the number 2 objective here. 2 Jade Lancers on this point. Peasant Horsemen do get jumped on by the Warhounds. If they'd gotten a charge off, they'd probably have done enough damage to help break those Warhounds. Not that big of a deal. Just getting the number 2 is big enough. And now these Jade Lancers can just get free charges onto the rear of the Chaos Warriors. And just hammer them into dirt. Or into dust, I should say. Warriors of Chaos, pretty much done now. I think we can fast forward through this. They lost Archeon a little bit ago. He got finished off by, I think, the Iron Hails, or just like some unit out here on the flank. Leadership is pretty poor for the Warriors of Chaos as a result. And, you know, just a little too much of a value lead here that Cathay has. It might not seem it, but, you know, we've had artillery pieces out here. When it got unsummoned, it didn't give a lot of supplies back. There's been a lot of routing hounds, too. That's another thing. Hounds rout pretty easily, and they run off the field at, like, half HP. So they've been bleeding a lot of value that way, and then losing a bunch of Marauder Horsemen. And then just... sometimes the value tabulations can be really funky in domination mode. You can't rely on them to get a true read of the battlefield. Yeah, Pizu giving some really good tips there, Asmid, for a really easy, like, beginner-friendly style of Demons of Chaos play. Demons of Chaos are way better at defending their missile line than Tzeentch is, and Tzeentch is already pretty decent at it. Demons of Chaos having all of those nasty Seekers makes all the difference in the world for being even better than Tzeentch at defending their back line. We've got Procyon Loader, Smokey Loco here. Smokey did get to the finals, did fall to Khorne, unfortunately, but I am very excited to see Smokey really innovating on his own style of play. Lots of the games I've cast in the past with Smokey has been very, like, same-ish. It's been Malachi with, like, 4 artillery pieces, which is a big investment. But still keeping, like, a fairly dense artillery formation here. 2 Dowie Great Cannons. And then going for the Demon Slayer and the Dragon Slayers. Not a bad call in the least. The Dragon Slayers will be fairly good at beating down on Bale Taurus characters if they decide to land in combat. I would really recommend that. That's very hazardous proposition going up against the Dowie. And in fact, I don't know if you really need a Bale Taurus character in this matchup. Trying to think of what would be the best Lore of Magic. Honestly, probably bringing Astragoth would be a better call. Because you're not getting healing on this guy, because the Dowie don't have magic, so... the Chalice of Blood and Darkness is the item that these Sorcerer Prophets, have. That people are relying on to heal them up a bunch. If you've ever noticed that you've done a bunch of damage to the Sorcerer Prophets on the Bale Tauruses, and then they've got a bunch of HP back, it's because of that one item. It's very powerful. But it only procs on spellcasts, so honestly, against the Dowie, Astragoth has Flamestorm, which does a ton of damage and lasts forever. It'd be really good against the Dowie too, because Dowie can get pretty blobby sometimes if the spacing isn't done properly on the infantry units. You can get some really sick value on Flamestorm. It also punishes missile units pretty nicely. And then Astragoth actually has cap weight, and he's fairly quick, so he can, like, cap points by himself. And if the melee heroes are, like, running after him, he can just disengage for free. And he's really small, so Dowie shooting also has a hard time hitting him. The Bale Taurus character, very vulnerable to Iron Drakes, and the cannons will actually pummel him pretty badly, too, if the Chaos Dowie player is not careful here. Magma Cannon's opening up, not getting a ton of value, just whiffing 2 fat shots there. The Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders got punished pretty badly by the cannons, it seems. Oh my god. Yeah, decent value from them on just a couple of volleys. Yeah, just 2 volleys each. Really not bad at all. Like I said, it is still a fairly big investment for artillery, but the Dowie are pretty good at defending their backlines. Typically it's better, so typically for the dwarves, the best thing they can do to defend their cannons, it's a little harder to do on this map because of the layout, I guess. The best thing they do is get their cannons out and then move it up to like a vanguard point, or just keep it on a back point and like cover 1 or preferably 2 objectives. And then you've got somewhere you can just summon free answers out against your opponent if they try to dive the cannons. And then use these guys, of course, to like control space and do a bunch of damage that your opponent can't really respond to very well. Dowie doing a good job of screening out the magma cannons by just hiding in trees and moving up through, moving up behind the tree lines here. This is kind of this is another reason why artillery tends to not, like, over-dominate, dominate domination mode, no pun intended. It's just the fact that lots of maps have, shot blockers of some kind that you can use to, like, mitigate the worst possible damage from cannons. And there's nothing wrong with taking advantage of the terrain, man. It's the best and safest way to counter stuff like these magma cannons. And the Chaos Dowie are doing a decent job of it too. Ever since that first opening salvo, these cannons really haven't gotten to do a whole lot. They are opening up on the Bale Taurus character now. See if they're gonna hit this guy. They are a little inaccurate right now. Haven't hit any shots. A little unfortunate. Not too terrible. They can probably open up on these Great Weapon Warriors if they want to now. That was a fat shot from a magma cannon. Double hits from each of these guys, wrecking that miner unit. You can see just how devastating the magma cannons can be. Just from those 2 shots there. Like one here, one here. It killed a bunch of models and took out a ton of HP on all the others. Blasting Charge Volley does get off here against the Chaos Dwarf Warriors, but, you know, the nerf to the AP on the Blasting Charge is pretty bad. It's really mitigated the miners' trade potential, which I think is fine. Dowie players certainly not appreciating the change per se, but they've still got Iron Breakers. Iron Breaker blasting charges didn't get any changes, and they already do more damage than the minor blasting charges do, so they've still got really good sources, and these guys are still good at clearing out chaff. It's really just against armor that they're that little bit less efficient. Oh, God, dude. Oh, the magma cannons. Oh, the humanity. These poor guys, man. What a horrible way to go out, too. Just, like, burned to death by, you know, howitzers firing, like, napalm shells. Very unfortunate that both of them hit the trees. There is one thing I would like to see get changed. It's, like, the smallest change in the world. It's not that big of a deal. But for, artillery that has vortex effects, you might have noticed it. If they hit trees, the vortex doesn't actually spawn. I'd really like it to change so that you can, with some artillery pieces, fire into trees and then at least get the vortex damage, even if the missile doesn't land clean. It would be nice. It's not like a pressing issue. Maybe it is like a intentional deal. But methinks it isn't intentional, and it's just like a, it's just one of those, janky things with, terrain interactions that you see and stuff sometimes. Look at this, dude. Dowie have been scrapping really well on this middle point. There's not really a whole lot to talk about, honestly. Like, the Dowie are just doing what they do. They're pushing up their infantry, they're just, like, throwing all their blasting charges in and engaging, very clean with all of their tools, not overpressing in any one area, and they're getting aggressive in the backline here now, but honestly, they can afford to. They're locking down the Fireglaves here. The Lord is taking a bunch of damage, so not going to be very good against the heroes here, and they're going after the artillery pieces now, while also chasing the Chaos Dwarf infantry a long way away from the actual objectives. And these guys, you know, they're pretty beat up, but they got a little bit of HP left. They could rally and get a little bit more value back. Gadai totally unsupported against the Slayers. They will do pretty good damage to these guys, but they're probably not going to get their value back. And of course, you know, the Slayers don't mind dying a glorious death against these demonic Hellspawn, dude. Such cool units. You know, they give me the like the same vibes as like the Nazgul do in Lord of the Rings. You got these like weird, funky crowns, and they've got like a very spooky, like ethereal-ish type of body, but like a mortal, like shtick to where you can like actually damage them, but maybe not truly kill them. Since they are demons, I imagine when they get killed, like their, you know, outer shell that the Chaos Dowie have like put them in, I imagine the souls of the demons just go back to the warp like all the other demons do. But pretty fun nonetheless. Pretty reasonable value for how bad of a fight it is. Just a little unfortunate. The Chaos Dowie have just been massively pressed back, man. They just haven't really been very confident at tackling any one area of the battlefield, and the cannons have just made so much space because it's just meant that there's absolutely nothing that can move up on the #1 objective here. And the #2 objective engagement, like the way that the Chaos Dowie had to move up, a lot of their units were like getting stuck up at the edge of the tree line. They never got on the points, and then the blasting charges didn't get tons of damage but disrupted the formation, and then the Slayer Swarm has just been pushing them back ever since. And then their own magma cannons just didn't have good sight lines. They've done a little bit of work, but just not nearly as much. And the Dowie just are able to go way wider with better cap weight, so that's another issue that the Chaos Dwarves are running into here. This is probably a really bad matchup for the Chaos Dowie, just thinking about it from an objective standpoint. Dowie have so much good shooting. Cannons and units of this type really do hard counter magma cannons. Because magma cannons They do really good damage to infantry, but they lose the artillery duel so horribly. And the cannons, just plinking away for an entire game will get a decent amount of value. Usually they'll double their value if they fire all their ammunition off. While magma cannons, you know, they can get it in a much shorter period of time, but that doesn't matter if they just get killed in the actual artillery duel. And Smokey Loco just running away with this. Just really clean Dowie play, not doing anything spectacular. There really hasn't been anything, like, wild to shout out, but just, like, really solid lines of engagement. Really good positioning on the cannons and making sure that they're just, like, massively outranging and holding the Chaos Dowie's expensive units at bay, and then leaving all of the Slayers and other good tools to, like, rush up here. And probably haven't value traded amazingly. Like, Smokey Loco's way up, it says. But a lot of that value is on, like, the Dragon Slayers, who have done really well. The Cannons got some pretty free value. The Sorcerer Prophet got beat up pretty badly. In terms of the actual, like, infantry traits, it's probably just even for the Dwarves. That's usually how it goes for them. Their infantry just don't have a ton of, like, DPS potential. It's really their shooting and the hero squads that are the big, dangerous units for them. Gyros as well. Gyros are a shooting unit anyways, so kind of skews the same way for them either way. Nice stuff, dude. Yeah, the Slayers just barely got their value back, and, you know, they were all dead by the end of the game, but that's respectable. That's all the Dowie really need oftentimes from their melee units. Just tons of miners in the back. I don't really love spamming miners, personally, but having all this cheap cap weight isn't a bad thing, for sure. I just never loved these guys' performance. They never value trade up. But I get, you know, again, like I said, that's not really the Dowie's thing. I just am used to playing factions where the melee units are actually good in melee, so whenever I, like, run into the Dowie, or if I try to play them, I'm just always stunned by how bad they actually are at doing damage with their melee infantry for the most part. Slayers are solid in melee. Slayer Pirates are okay, but outside of that, there's really not a whole lot to hang your hat on. Yeah, Metal Magic is probably the best lore, and then Astragoth is the other one. Just because he can use Flamestorm, like I said, it's got a pretty decent cast range on it. And against missile units, the way that Flamestorm works, it hangs around for freaking ages. It is the longest lasting Vortex spell in the game, and just based on that, that's where its damage potential comes in. And then you get an extra 20% like strength to it because of Kindle Flame. I mean, 27 seconds, 150 meter range, like, that's far enough for Astragoth to stay out of range of most of the missile units that might want to try and punish him. He just drops this and runs away, cackles a little bit. The AP is not, like, amazing, but against the Dowie, who already have a bunch of spell resistance, it's, like, reasonable enough. It'll still do okay. It's not the worst thing in the world, but Metal Magic probably is just the tried and true method, because Plague of Rust lowering armor is so strong, and Searing Doom is really good at doing damage as well. Also really good at pounding missile units, and it's got a better cast range than even Flamestorm does. Final Transmutation is very bad against the Dwarves. Typically, but against other factions, Final Transmutation is really good against hero squads. The Dowie spell resist is usually more than enough to just not care all that much, and Dowie heroes are already really inexpensive, so usually you forego it. Probably just this guy on foot, or you do Astragoth, if you want a character that can like win some melee engagements for real. It's only 2,000. That's not breaking the bank. That's pretty reasonable for what he can do with just these couple of things. The Hammer of Hashut is just one of the best, like, punish, hard punish self-buffs in the game. Because he imbues the 50% weapon strength, but then also he gives another flammable. And if you proc that in conjunction with Kindle Flame, basically he's got 90% more weapon strength, which gives him up to almost 1k damage that he can do against any target in the game. So he's actually really good at smacking up other single entities. He was broken on release for a reason. He used to be even more insane, but now he's just kind of crazy, if that makes any sense. He's a lot more honest now. Because he used to have more HP even, I think, and he may have had more melee attack. Someone can probably correct me. You can go check this on the, not the Total Tavern site, but there's a website where you can check all the unit cards, and you can check previous patches as well. So you could go back and see release Astrogoth and let me know what you think, because he was absolutely ridiculous. He was so broken. He's fallen off in favor of the Sorcerer Prophets, but he's still pretty usable in some of the matchups in the game. He's your best bet against folks that don't allow the healing from Chalice. I think the Kadai Fireborn can work against the Dowie. They hit hard enough. They've got decent melee defense. As long as they stay away from Slayers, they can get fat value for you. The shooting is okay. I don't know about the Infernal Guard Ironsworn, because they'll just get killed by cannons and also Rangers. Because they don't have a shield. I think blunderbusses might actually be pretty good here. Because they're not as good as the Fireglaves in combat, but they're cheaper. They do more damage per volley. And if the Dowie compromise this unit with like a miner or something, like these guys can still defend themselves. And the damage output on the Dowie infantry units is awful anyways. So you can just hang in and not care that much. Chaos Dowie Warriors just have a hard time on the one-on-one. This has got to be a really rough matchup. I mean, just looking at it, like, there's just not a lot here that specializes against their more, honorable cousins, so to speak. If anybody has experience with the matchup, hit me up, because I'm very curious about it. We already saw this one. This is the, this is a duplicate. Here we go. Yeah, Anything was our winner this tournament. You know, sorry to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but, you know, you can go check out the other VOD if you want to. Anything was playing very clean games, too. Oh, no, I think we did see this one. But we can recover it. We can cover it again. Because this was a pretty good match. It's a pretty good showcase of the kind of aggression that Khorne can pull off better than most factions in the game. You know, you just got so many solid DPS units as well as good mobility that you can get away with stuff that a lot of other factions really can't. Throwing Axe is moving out. They're hanging out here. Karanak moving forward. Gotta be a little careful with Karanak, just because his armor is not that good. So, you know, like, skirmish cav units can punish him a little bit. But Anything, obviously, very attuned to dodging around with this guy, and is able to squeak away without taking any bow fire there on the Chaos Doggy here. Not so lucky on the Horsemen. You know, Marauder Horsemen, this is why I typically don't bring them in openers against factions that have their own skirmish cav. Honestly, I just prefer to get more infantry. Like, I would just upgrade a couple of these Marauders to Chaos Warriors. Because I tend to find the extra armor is perfectly fine, and if you just avoid taking damage on the skirmishers, you may not get, like, early caps, like is going on here, but Khorne can typically outmuscle people anyway, so it doesn't matter. It does come down to playstyle reference, but your horsemen lose so hard in the early skirmish phase against horse archers. And these guys are much better in later stages where they can really rear charge as well as counter big scary units like, you know, the Demon's Tongue and stuff that you don't really want to fight in combat with anything, quite honestly. Minotaurs of Khorne, really the only thing you want to hit these things with in melee. Like, Valkia can't really do it. Kiranak can, but he doesn't do enough damage because his AP is solid, but, you know, not amazing. Hounds of the Blood Hunt, stuff like that, don't really want to get locked in on this because, you know, they're fairly squishy and they can get shot down. But you'll see how anything decides to play around the Demon's Tongue. Did a pretty good job of it, too. Dodging around with the Lord some more, avoiding a lot of the missile fire, taking a little bit of poke on Valkia. Not that big of a deal, though. These guys have fired off quite a few volleys for very minimal gains. And it's given time for Khorne to get up on this point. And they cap it away before the Chaos Dawi get over here. And now the Chaos Dawi are like taking front line fights, and they get a little too distracted, and they do get a Hobgoblin Wolf Raider caught up by the Hounds of the Blood Hunt, who are just an amazing unit. So strong, dude. And they have a heal in combat. So as long as they don't get, like, hammered by counter charges, these guys are an absolute nightmare for just about any faction. You know, durable, long-lasting. Durable for a Flesh Hound, at least, I mean. And then really fast and able to do stuff like this where they're just going to chase off this unit, you know. That's going to be like 300 extra gold value that's not reflected towards the end of the match. And Valkia and Kiranak here just beating up on poor Astragoth. And Astragoth, again, like I said, really strong in these kinds of matchups where the Chalice of Blood and Darkness doesn't come into play. And he may be a strong duelist, but getting double-teamed like this, not really where he wants to be. He's getting the crap kicked out of him right now. He is snared as well. Prey of the Blood God, amazing snare. Really well balanced since they nerfed it. If you were here for release Kiranak, he would get like 1,000 value from like one cast of Prey of the Blood God because it did so much damage. It was basically a double duration Spirit Leech, which was kind of ridiculous. It just made him so good at killing lords that he was an auto-include. And then you basically couldn't bring any kind of expensive lord against Khorne, and that's just a whole can of worms that is just an absolute nightmare. It was not intended. They nerfed it, and Kiranak is still very viable. You don't see him all the time, but if you play well with him like anything is doing, he can absolutely shut down combat lords like this. And, yeah, look at Astragoth trying to get away from the doggo. Gets a nice little swipe in there from beyond the dimensions. He's, like, opens up rifts in time with his claw attacks, which is really cool. Really fun animation. Valkia lands on the Granite Guard. Normally you don't want your Flesh Hounds pushed in the steep, but this is the summon that Kiranak has, which is kind of cool. You don't see people bring the Howl. But it's actually alright, you know, it can occupy a lot of attention. This is probably the least effective summon of it I've seen, but it still got its value back, so nothing terrible, and it helped Valkia avoid getting pummeled by Bull Centaur Renders, which is usually a pretty good, solid counter to her. Front line for the Chaos Dwarves in absolute shambles, dude. This is what Khorne does so well. They've lost, like, all their Marauders for the most part, but, you know, the Marauders value trade reasonably well, even into higher tier infantry, because they've got a bunch of melee attack. When they have Frenzy up, they have 44 melee attack, which for a 400 gold unit is actually kind of cracked. And they tire stuff out, they get reasonable value, and then you bring in the heavy hitters, like the Chaos Warriors, the Blood Beasts, who are doing pretty nice up here, Forsaken Swarming. And just really, really aggressive dives in the back here, but not the worst things in the world. You do have the Granite Guard kind of pummeling Valkia here. She gets hit by Ash Storm, and the Granite Guard now really hammering her. This is one of the things you gotta be very careful of. Poor Valkia just gets absolutely deleted back here. But Karanak, you know, he's still alive. There's some Marauders here. They really should push past to give Karanak time to get up in here. And the Hound play has been really good. Using the Hounds to punish these Orc Laborers. Now they're chasing down the remaining Wolf Raiders. And then you've got Furies and Chaos Warhounds getting on top of these blunderbusses and just shredding them, dude. Khorne Furies are the best Fury unit because they actually just kill stuff in combat. You know? Their melee attack is pretty insane at 44. Meaning that they just get past the melee defense of stuff that's honestly way more expensive than them. More often than not. So the value trade opportunities for Furies, oftentimes, is just too good to pass up. They're super meta, because they fly over the top of front lines, they get to land in for free oftentimes, and then Khorne has plenty of other good, like, pressure tools to, like, synergize with them. And they can just tear things up. Both Centaur Renders charging in, pretty good value on them. They do charge into some Halberds, taking some pretty nasty damage now that the charge bonus is wearing off. Karanak coming in to help out. These are not the great weapon, or even the dual weapon variant. Actually, the shielded version. Which I was pretty surprised to see, but these guys actually do end up... spoiler alert, they do end up paying for themselves by the end of the game. I was a little surprised. Maybe they do have a niche use. Just having that shield makes them a little more resilient to missile fire. And they got good melee defense. I mean, 50 melee defense is kind of crazy, so they can be very good at charging stuff down over and over again, because their speed's pretty respectable and they got a lot of mass. So they can push around the field pretty nicely. Yeah, the train, it's gotten a lot of value, but, you know, honestly, the biggest thing anything is doing is just, like, running away from it in the open field, and then when there's actual stuff to, like, lock it down, then swarming it with infantry and the Minotaurs and stuff, actually able to punish it a little bit. It's still been very disruptive, though. Trains are just a solid unit, and Karanak does find the kill on Astrogoth. Poor Grandpa now has giant cow udders in his face, or bull dong, I guess, since these are, you know, bull centaurs. You know, not really where he wants to be in death. I would appreciate a little more respect, fellas. Karanak does die, but he got 2,300 value, and has held up long enough for some Khorngors to get in on the Renders here, who are going to be going down fairly quickly to those guys. Kadai Fireborn, they've been fighting some Halberds up here, who have gotten really solid value, nothing too insane. But you can see, this is a pretty prime example of what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, the Warriors, they didn't get their value back, but they got something back in the bank. Like, damn close to paying for themselves. And it has meant that, you know, like these Flesh Hounds and the Hounds of the Blood Hunt, who have died recently, as well as the Forsaken and the Minotaurs and stuff, they don't have to do all the heavy lifting. They don't have to get quite as much value to make up for the, like, lowish performance of the other tools on the battlefield. So, sometimes just being bold and recognizing that you're just going to have to eat some casualties can pay off for you. You got to be very cautious of how you handle engagements, but anything has been doing just that. Like, finding really good opportunities to just, like, dive the Chaos Dwarves. Using the Forsaken aggressively now to, like, push, now that the missiles and the melee units have gotten up. Diving the other melee piece that's unprotected with the Furies, killing them. Flying over the Orc Laborers, keeping them en route for a bit. And going to be able to find an engagement on the Blazing Beards, potentially, which would be pretty nice. Just deciding to go in on the Blunderbusses again. Forsaken getting hammered. A little unfortunate, but, you know, they're keeping the Chaos Dwarves back, and there's a triple cap in here. And the value trading is in Khorne's favor enough that even if they just, like, value trade evenly for the rest of the game, the Chaos Dwarves will never get up on these points again. You know, this is the risk that some factions have innately playing Dom, is if they lose points, they're just not equipped with the kind of units to recontest easily. Khorne, Beastmen, Slaanesh, they're really good at getting back up on points just because of their mobility and or really good fighting potential in attritional style. Chaos Dowie like to play from ahead. And being down by like almost 2,000 value is just not somewhere that they're going to be able to carry the game back for themselves. Demon's Tongue, though, man, really well microed and really well played from this Chaos Dwarf player, just running into the brick wall that is Khorne. Sometimes this happens. It's the way the cookie crumbles. It's a pretty even matchup, but there's a lot of like rock paper scissors types of builds and engagements that you can run into here. Like, Khorne can get really folded up by good artillery play from the Chaos Dwarves, but, you know, map dependent. And then also Khorne does have really good backline pressure and can kill those artillery pieces. So it just comes down to who's making just enough plays to pull this one out. And anything, man. Just staying scrappy, and did take some risks, but was able to get those risks to pay off, even when punished in some inopportune moments, like losing Valkia back here, losing a couple of Fleshhounds at inopportune moments, but winning really hard in the front line makes up for that in spades. Is there anything that I can say that the Chaos Dowie should have done? Oh, I remember now. What I was saying last time I watched this replay. I really wouldn't say that there's anything too different that, I would do. Just not this many Bull Centaur renders. Like, you know, 3 is a big investment. These guys are so freaking expensive. You can just cut this one of the great weapons, and then bring 3 of the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders. Because Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders are actually really good at countercharging Fleshhounds and Furies. They do really well against them as long as they don't get charged themselves. Which shouldn't be too big of an issue, since there's like a decent number of them, but not like an overwhelming swarm, so you should be able to isolate those guys, and being able to do that and free up your missile pieces is how you get ahead in this kind of a matchup and take over a game against a faction like Khorne. Because Khorne, they can recontest well, but if they're pushing into missiles in a late game scenario is where they tend to get absolutely destroyed. It's really awful sometimes. I've been there plenty. Like I said, Chaos Dowie, it's a pretty even matchup for both sides. What's up, Ninja? How's it going, man? Yeah, I guess that's true, Pizu. 15 cap weight with 80 armor walking out for 1,000 gold is not bad. That's definitely what a lot of factions wish they had. It's just personal preference for me, you know? Dowie aren't really my cup of tea. I don't find the Dowie to be all that hard to counter, but I do play mostly factions that have pretty good matchups against them. Yeah, I don't think we've seen this one. We've got triple Scourge Runner Chariot against the Warriors of Chaos here. Pont bringing all kinds of cool builds, not really settling in on any one style. It's also bringing some pretty off-meta magic. We'll see if Pont's able to win this game as opposed to that very unfortunate first loss that we saw from him. You know, losing out in the first game to the Skaven on cap. Not super fun as the person who's losing a close game like that. We'll see what they can do against the Warriors of Chaos. Dark Elves honestly have a pretty good matchup here. The thing they need to worry about the most is obviously Archaon with Burning Head. You know, Dark Elves are pretty lightly armored outside of the Black Ark Corsairs, so they can get folded up by the magic, but tons of armor here. 3 Blackheart Corsairs, and Harganeth Executioner, and these guys are really good since the buff. I didn't think that their buff was going to make them much better. I've honestly been seeing them get their value back pretty consistently now, though. Like, just that little bit of extra melee attack, I think, is what they got. And I think maybe some more weapon strength, and they've been shredding some units lately. It's wild. I mean, a lot of, you know, for RTS games, and really especially for Total War Warhammer, sometimes seemingly insignificant buffs are really just really finely tuned breakpoints to where really niche units like this can, like, uptrade finally into the stuff that they're intended to fight. And they'll do amazingly at just chewing through Marauders, and especially chewing through Chaos Warrior Halberds. This is where I would be salivating to try and get them into combat, like going in against these very expensive Halberd units whose melee defense is just not going to cut it in that one-on-one, as well as not being able to punch back very well because of the 34 melee defense these guys have. Oh, baby. I'd love to see it. This one I haven't seen yet, so we'll have to stay tuned for how it plays out. But the Scourge Runners, man, such a sneaky good unit. They do so much damage with their missiles. Oftentimes, they usually don't get their full value back with the missiles. They usually get up to like 600 to 700 is what I've seen pretty consistently. But then they're a pretty solid chariot, and they'll get their value back, and then you can unsummon them at that point and get a little bit of a refund. Really solid unit, and they dominate Skirmish Cav. Because their missiles pierce, and they do enough damage with the bonus versus large to actually just kill models, very efficient at fighting units of this type. Beast Sorceress hanging out, did get hit by Spirit Leech. Dropped the Pharaoh Manticore, which is going after the Soul of Damnation, actually, and doing pretty well against it. The Soul of Damnation's honestly not that hard to kill when you can send in summons and then also poke it at range with the missiles here. There is a lot here trying to defend it too, which means that the frontline fight's going to be way easier for the Dark Elves now. Like, these Blackheart Corsairs are getting onto the perfect targets in the Marauders. You're going to beat the absolute shit out of these guys. Just full punishment. The Marauders just going to get massacred by Blackheart Corsairs. Like, really good weapon strength and stats against a low armored chaff unit. It's exactly what Blackheart Corsairs, like, do best. They just dominate those kind of fights. Very unfortunate getting caught up by these Hellstriders. A lot of damage on those Scourge Runner chariots. Most of the models are fine, but definitely want to save these Scourges. They're just so useful, man. And another Manticore summon coming down. That is the second and final. Does kill the Soul of Damnation. The pulsing testicles on the back of that thing no longer going. Very grim sign for the Warriors of Chaos. Losing the Soul of Damnation, because it's so expensive and you're already giving up a bunch of momentum, losing the artillery piece when it hasn't really done a whole lot, just sucks, dude. It's almost always an auto-lose. I've seen people scrap back from it, but very rarely. Very rarely are you going to be able to do so cleanly. So I am a little stressed for the Warriors of Chaos now. The Scourge Runner Chariots have most of their models, and Chariots, another unit where, yeah, they've taken a ton of HP damage, but they've got most of their models left. They'll still be able to get some really good damage output from the missiles, and then you unsummon and just get back what you can. They've done pretty well, you know, nothing too crazy, but definitely a pretty solid performance overall. Slaanesh's Harvester's out here, and then there's another Doomfire Warlock. This one flattening the Warhounds. Pretty iffy unit. You really need to, like, get all the uses out of the Doom Bolts and Bound Soul Blights for them to pay for themselves, but they're interesting for sure. They can definitely get good value in the right kinds of matchups. I don't know about this one in particular, but Pont is doing a pretty good job of microing them, so I don't think it's that big of a deal, even if this isn't, like, the ideal matchup for the, Doomfires. Using some Dark Riders. This is just value, man. Like, this may not seem like a big deal, but, like, occupying 3 horsemen with 1 of yours, pushing these guys back and leaving your, infantry up here to just grind for free with absolutely no worries in the world, is beautiful stuff. I mean, unbothered, moisturized, in their lane, thriving, are the Dark Elf infantry, and they'll be able to fold up the halberds here eventually. And the Executioners, I mean, they've gotten some pretty insane kill totals already, just killing Marauders. They got all the HP in the world to still win this fight. They do need to actually get into that fight, though. Since they're, like, chasing something, and they're pushing through, a lot of the models are, like, pushing past and taking damage. But now, it does look like they get an order to get engaged, and the Murderous Mastery procs at the same time. Lowering the vigor, raising leadership, giving them more melee attack and charge bonus. Absolutely sauce to the gills right now. They might even be able to put some big damage down on Archaon. Just with those good stats, dude. It'd be even better if they weren't tired, but you know, you can't have everything in the world, right? Don't want to get too greedy. Rotting Riders getting pummeled right now by those repeater crossbows and the Scourge Runner Chariots. Just really good isolation on all of the mobility units, while the infantry just not being supported enough back here, man. And Pont is just punishing so well with the shooting and the mobility and all of it working in tandem. Exactly how the Dark Elves have to be used. This is really where the Dark Elves can just dominate a game. It is one of the things that does leave them in a little bit of a weaker position overall, just because you do have to be so pinpoint with your micro. But when Dark Elves are being played correctly, they really are and do look like one of the best factions in the game. They're a very, like, skill expression type of faction, and that makes them really exciting to watch. It's always fun to watch good Dark Elf players. Pizu in chat's one of our Dark Elf champions, and is definitely one of the higher performing Dark Elf mains out there. Him and Chimbambu. Chimbambu's the other like gold standard player for the old Druchii. Yeah, the Hargoneth Executioners, dude, they get their value back, finding a lot of stuff. Getting ground down and tired out by some Marauders, but, you know, finishing off a Chaos Warrior Halberd at the end here. Pretty solid from them. Burning Head going down. I think they have also eaten a couple Burning Heads as well, which is never great. I mean, it's not great damage against armor, but it's steady, and it is, like, reasonable enough that it's not a total waste. The leadership debuffs from the Burnt effect is also a big deal, because the Blackheart Corsairs wouldn't have broken otherwise. And it's giving the Warriors of Chaos a little bit of an avenue back up onto the number 2 here. But the mobility just back to pushing all of these units away. And the Dark Elves are going to cap the number 3. They don't really need to get up on the number 2. They can just send a couple units to the number 1 and ice this game out. Pont's been really good about the supplies also. You know, like getting up, saving up supplies, always having enough to bring out the right kind of answer based on opponent summons. It doesn't really need a whole lot, though. You know, a little unfortunate that you lost this point, but the Hargoneth Executioners, they didn't hear no bell. You know, 34 of them left. They're going to pile into combat against the absolute cream of the crop, dude. I mean, look how big Aspiring Champions are. And, the Hargoneth Executioners are elves. And the elves in Warhammer aren't, like, Lord of the Rings elves, or they're, like, you know, like 9 feet tall or whatever, but they're still, like, fairly tall and graceful duelists, and the Aspiring Champions are just, like, you know, gigantic brutes from, you know, beyond. Like, they did a really good job of scaling up models to look intimidating. You know, so, like, running into this Aspiring Champion unit, When you get in on the ground and you get in close, you can really, like, feel the impact of the units, which is something that a lot of games with this kind of scale get wrong, or just kind of, like, don't quite capture well enough. But, you know, again, credit where credit is due. Total War Warhammer, for all of its faults, all the little things that it gets wrong, gets a lot of the big stuff oh so right. Cold One Knights chillin', the Warlocks chillin'. They didn't do too hot. You know, that's kind of what I was afraid of. It's really the Marauder Horsemen pushing them back. They're just, their armor sucks. 15 armor. They got a ton of physical resistance, but Hellstriders with the bonus versus large. Lots of targets that can hound them. They tend to be really good where they can make use of the magic attacks and poison. I don't think the Warriors of Chaos are quite the matchup that they're looking for. They've been used fairly well, though. Like, at least screening-wise, they've done okay. Mini is not out of this game. Could get back in this. There's nothing to kill Archaon. He's not very functional. These Doomfire Warlocks and the Harpies have been forgotten about back here. Just getting him back in wouldn't be a bad idea. Dark Elves holding the point barely against this Chaos Warrior. You can see just how much just some tattered cap weight can slow down a cap race. It's taking ages for this Chaos Warrior, which is at full health, mind you. Taking ages for them to cap this point up. Archaon moves on, and it should speed that up pretty nicely. Still not going ideal, and a mobility fight breaking out down here that the Dark Elves are just mopping up now, which is really awesome for them. They also still have that point. 1,800 on that repeater crossbow, 1,000 here. That's beautiful. I don't see people bring tons of Dark Riders anymore. I do think they can really shine, though. I don't know why people don't bring them often. Maybe Pizu can clue me in. But every time I end up playing against Dark Elf players and they bring their repeater crossbows, they just seem like the bane of my existence. They're fast, and they just have so much damage potential with the AP missiles. Warriors engaged against the Blackheart Corsairs. I don't know where these guys are going, but I would guess they're going to get a flank charge off here, which would be really nice. And Beast Sorceress. Oh, the Amber Spear going down on Archaon. Oh, snipes him off his horse. The Ever-Chosen going down here. Getting his revenge from beyond the grave, maybe? No, not quite. Doesn't break her. Ouch, dude. That's insulting. I'd be pretty peeved as the Archie player. He miscast damaged himself. And then the Amber Spear hit him, and he just slumped over. He was just fatally gunshot by that spell snipe there. Pretty hilarious, truth be told. It probably would have killed him even without the miscast that he had on himself, but that certainly didn't hurt. Marauders getting folded up by all the mobility. Dark Riders and stuff chilling here. You know, Dark Elves, they're overstretching a little bit where they don't really need to. They didn't really need to try and, like, hold this point back here. They could have just sent all this infantry over here if they wanted to, but, you know, if you can get a triple cap and you just really want to put an exclamation point on your game, why not? It ain't a bad idea, you know? Let your name ring out and all that. Let's check the Blackheart of Naggarond value. I am pretty curious about them. You don't see them often either. And it's a cool Dark Elf build. I mean, the Supreme Sorceress didn't get a bunch of value, quote-unquote, but her 2 Manticore summons did kill the Soul of Damnation. I mean, that alone pretty much made it possible for her to pay for herself in some sense, you know? That's what I'm saying about damage values being a little misleading, because summons also don't contribute to the value bar, and killing artillery pieces. The way it works is killing the crew gives you value, but killing the actual cannons does not. it'll give the unit that killed the cannon model credit for damage value dealt, but the actual value bar doesn't show any of that, which is really funky. I don't know how exactly damage values are tabulated, but just like slowly over time, I've been puzzling out all of the funky little interactions. It's just one of the most bizarre and inscrutable systems for a game I've ever seen in my life. It's something to behold. Okay, repeater crossbows, either outranged, chased by Furies, don't have enough space. Yeah, that makes sense. How you know if a unit is bad or just bad for a certain matchup? Just practice. Just practice. That's how you figure it out. I've been playing multiplayer for this game since Warhammer 3 came out, and of course I played 1 and 2 when they were out. So, like, you know, it's a little bit different coming from campaign to multiplayer. It's not that different, though. You know, like, in campaign, you get a pretty good taste of, like, what units are good against certain factions. So you do learn a good bit from there. But coming to multiplayer, you just get, like, a way more solid idea of what works against what in a vacuum. So, God, let me think about this. Let me try and give a good example of where, ooh, like Razorgore Herd. Razorgore Herd are amazing against Empire and factions that have heavy cavalry, where the Razorgore Herd just hard counter these guys from a value perspective. They munch on Empire Knights for breakfast. The piggies love those kind of matchups. Matchups where they're terrible, though, are like Slaanesh, because of the Hellstriders, and also Demons of Chaos, because of all the physical resist, and then like Seekers and Fleshhounds and stuff like that. That's like the best example I can give you of a unit that might look god-awful in one matchup, but then look like an absolute hard carry unit in another. What's another good example? Gorbals. Gorbals are, like, pretty mediocre against factions that go really wide, you know, with a lot of infantry, just because, you know, they're geared for an anti-large fight anyways. But against factions like Ogre Kingdoms, and against Greenskins, as well as Chaos Dwarves, and even Dark Elves. Dark Elves are another pretty good matchup for them. They really just value trade so well against the large targets that they're an auto-include in those matchups, in my opinion. And then Wargors are better into the wide builds, because these guys soak up a bunch of missile fire. They're really good against infantry. They'll just sit and grind a ton of value, and they provide, like, really cheap, durable cap weight on a point. And they can wombo combo with stuff like Razorgores, too. So there's lots of cool little ins and outs to factions and units that you can really capitalize on. I'm just giving examples from the Beastmen, because, you know, I just did a guide on them, and I just have been playing them a bunch, and they're my best faction. Like, Khorne is my favorite faction, and they're probably what I've been known for the most. A lot of that is just because Beastmen have been banned so much, but, you know, they got unbanned this season, so I've been playing a ton of them now that I've got the opportunity to. And it's been really fun rediscovering all of the synergies and playing around with the new stuff. Cockatrices are really good for the Beastmen. Kind of surprised by how strong they are. They're way better on the Beastmen roster than they are for the Warriors of Chaos, in fact. And that's another thing. So for last little bit on this point. So sometimes units that are on multiple factions, sometimes the units are just, like, outright, like, not good in one particular, like, faction roster. Either they get outclassed by something else, or they're just, you know, superfluous to what you're trying to do to begin with, and the playstyle. But then you come over to another faction, and they fill, like, a very specific niche that, they can really capitalize on. Like, like, having snares on mobile SEs for the Beastmen is really gross. Like, these things having a 32-second slow can give you time to absolutely annihilate something like a Bull Centaur Render, or Chaos Dowie Train, or just, like, anything big and, like, mobile that you want to deal with. There's so much fun stuff you can do with things like this. So, even if you are, like, playing a faction and then you move on to another one and you see, like, a unit that you haven't been using much in the past, give it a try out on the other rosters and see how it does, because you might be surprised at the difference in results. You know, it's all relative. You'll never know until you try. I think... No, we didn't... Did we see this game? We'll watch it anyways. This one is gonna go by pretty quickly regardless. So, I can tell that based on the builds, just because either Tzeentch snipes Snicketch, and the heroes here can kill the weapon teams or lock them down long enough for the other units to, like, move up and start value trading. So either Tzeentch kills all the important units for the Skaven, and then the Skaven just run away, or the Skaven shooting and, like, value trade units just kill all of the infantry, and then the flying stuff here is just never going to be able to do anything to cap points. And Tzeentch is going to lose on tickets. And that's, like, the only two ways this game can play out, basically. Knowing your win conditions is a big force multiplier for you. Knowing what your opponent is trying to do and being able to, like, scheme out in your head as the battle is opening up exactly what it is you think they're trying to do execution-wise can give you a big leg up. Because you can kind of, like, it's not seeing into the future, you know? It's not so crazy as that or anything, but it's just getting a pretty solid idea of what your opponent might be trying and how you can maybe bait them into making a mistake. Good micro here. Just getting the wolf rats away. You know, these guys, like I said, they have bad leadership, so they just get folded up if they get charged. They didn't quite cap the point, but if they had stayed there, they would have just gotten killed by the, by Exalted Heroes and this Arthurial landing on them and terror routing them. And these guys are like 550 gold, so keeping them alive, it's something. They can get back in here later and get some work done. Oh my god, excuse me guys. I'm very sorry. Snicketch is just chilling over here. He has used his concealment bomb, so he is still invisible, I think? Right? You have to be so freaking close to units with concealment bombs before they get spotted. It's a very underrated ability on both Snicketch and also on the Death Runners and the Eshin Triads. You know what? I just realized we have seen this game. But we'll just go ahead and go through it again. Oh yeah, baby. Look at that Whirl of Weeping Blades. That's the ability from Snicketch. This ability is disgusting. That pretty much one-shot this Halberd unit. Just that one good use of it. Got 681 value for Snicketch right then and there. The Warp Lightning Cannon that it can Zap Zap does get shut down by the Screamers and the Exalted Heroes. Got a little bit of counterfire coming in. So this is one of the problems with the Warp Lightning Cannons. These models are so freaking big and bulky that it can be really hard to counterfire units if they've landed on the cannons already. Because if you are trying to shoot at them, oftentimes your own missile units will kill the cannon models, which has kind of happened here. You can see they're, like, pounding this thing. It's probably going to break in a second. There you go. That sucks. What you want to do is the Skaven, the best way to defend your pieces like this, have the Teeth Breakers. You summon them out a little bit earlier, and you need your Warlock Engineer to have Howling Warp Gale. You should always have Howling Warp Gale against a faction that can skew into flyers like Tzeentch can anyways. You can, like, keep them back here, because you know you're going to summon the cannon out, right? You know your opponent's probably going to want to shut those guys down. Just having the caster back here will oftentimes deter people. Then you can always scoot forward to cast in the front line, and then come back if you need to. But imagine if the Screamers and the Exalted Heroes got hit by the AoE Howling Warp Gale, and then the Rattling Guns can just gun them down while they're in the air. Because that's where Rattling Guns are really accurate, is shooting at flying units that are immobilized by Howling Warp Gale. And they'll get fat value for you that way. They are getting some volleys off here now, though. Since they're not obstructed by the cannon models anymore, you know, a little bit of a silver lining despite the losses for the Skaven. They are massacring this Exalted Hero here, and they killed the Screamer. So pretty good value right off the bat. And then the Halberds getting folded up pretty badly. You can see the Poison Wind Globes just getting massive, massive damage in on the Chaos Knights and these poor Halberds. What are you going to do? This is... Oh, Bartleby. Oh, humanity. Or, oh, Bartleby. Oh, chaos, I guess. You just can't let that happen, man. You have to check ranges on units like Poison Wind Globadiers. They're short range, and they do just obscene amounts of damage if they get volleys off. You have to be able to just avoid their Arc of Fire. That's why what the Exalted Heroes should have been doing is diving these weapon teams, and then using the Knights to like hammer them down one at a time while they're occupied by flyers. Now Snicketch here, he got hit by Final Transmutation earlier, if I'm not mistaken. And then a Doombolt comes in, and I mean he's a good lord, but he's very reliant on Phys Res for his survivability, and he's just getting hammered here. So having a really bad time, but he did a little bit. He killed an entire Halberd unit by himself, which is pretty impressive. So despite not getting his value back, he at least proved how badass he is, doing his like master splinter routine. Cool Warp Lightning tech. It actually hit a Changebringer bottle and popped their shield. And now the Natty Bubo's sharpshooters are poking these guys down at range. Kill a model there. The other one's going to be able to get out of range here fairly quickly. Natty Bubo's just doing the work of the Horned Rat here. Such a good unit. Just being invisible with Snipe is just so strong, man. They're nasty, and they're kind of hard to spot sometimes. So, like, you can spot these guys based on the little purple chemtrails they leave behind on their missile. But when you're zoomed out and you're, like, microing around, like, you can see it can be kind of hard to spot that going off sometimes in the background. So you really have to pay close attention to the battlefield to get an eye out for these dudes, because they really do need to be killed. They're a high-priority target. Any of the Skaven weapon teams are high-priority targets. Clan Rats, a lot less so. If you fight Clan Rats early, you're probably making a mistake, because the Skaven can bring so many bodies, and they can get so much value with the weapon teams just by like bursting you down as you're engaged on top of these crappy Skaven melee units, that it can get you in a hole real quick. King Cahoots is way behind here. Struggling mightily right now. So Thoriel is doing pretty well for himself. Pretty reasonable value. He takes a nasty volley from the Teeth Breakers there. Teeth Breakers, 2,400 value. Screamers landing in on top of them. Screamers not very good against weapon teams. They've got AP, but their melee attack is really bad. So they also don't have a lot of models. Furies are the cream of the crop when it comes to killing the Skaven weapon teams. That's what you really need against the Skaven, is Furies. Because a lot like the Dowie, the Furies can kill the scary ranged DPS. And then you can just take even engagements in the front line, because you'll eventually just wear down the Skaven front line and just kill them completely off the field, especially if you've already killed their lord. Normally, Snicketch having died so early would be pretty disastrous for the Skaven, but Tzeentch ain't got no infantry. They have nothing to follow up any of the successes that they have had. Like, they can't really... They're barely holding on to the #1 here, because they just got so many flyers out. I do think it actually flips here to the Skaven, if I'm not mistaken. Thanks to the Doomflare that's here. Yeah, wow, it actually does. And then they're capping up the middle objective, so they're going to get a triple cap here. They've lost their Chaos Warrior, and they just don't have anything. Like, what are you supposed to do here? It's not like you're completely out of this. Like, if they just had, like, 2 infantry units holding down 1 point... And then, you know, they could get, like, Sartorial and the Exalted Hero and the Screamers to, like, kind of do what they're doing and just, like, wear out the remaining weapon teams. I mean, they could get back in this game. Skaven are another faction that really needs to be playing from ahead to win matches. And you can see, even if they're up in value, they can run into trouble just because of how squishy their strong DPS units are. Sartorial gets sniped out of the air by the Zap Zap cannon. Really long range shots coming down, hitting the Screamers here, doing some really good damage. The Warp Lightning cannons hit pretty hard. They're actually pretty strong. They just tend to be a little bulky. They don't fire all that fast. And yeah, I mean, they're very hard to defend. Artillery is already hard to defend, but the Skaven artillery is just so scary. Like, one mistake trying to defend these guys and they're just gonna die, so you don't typically see them too much. But pretty decent use of them here. You know, the second time around they, you know, were well on their way to getting their value back, and all the other weapon teams are used amazingly. That's how you use Skaven firepower right there. And this was a pretty DACA-heavy build. Like, a lot of Jezzails, a lot of Rattling Guns. And normally, I would be against bringing this much shooting. But, it worked out real nice against this build. And anything can work if you have good micro and targeting priority. And Winter definitely had it here, so... Big thumbs up. Back on the Beastmen, I see. Always. Beastmen are my boys. Yeah, dude, Cathay versus High Elves. 2 of the weaker factions. High Elves just need an HP buff to everything. Like, if you gave all of their units, like, an extra 600 HP... it would not break them by any means. It would get them into a really good spot. I think maybe the only thing that doesn't need an HP buff is their, is like the Fireborn. But all of their infantry are just way too low on the HP front to be very good, you know? Like, they just lose because their HP pool is so small. They get outclassed by pretty much everyone. And Cathay just needs, like, some extra units to flesh out the roster, because they got a lot of holes in, a lot of key areas for domination in terms of, like, role. They don't have any good melee infantry. They're almost all reliant on, buffs from stuff like Zhangu War Drums and Harmony. And I actually, so I was thinking about it, and I think I mentioned it on the last stream. It would be really cool if they got, like, a Warrior Monk unit. That had, like, 32 models with, like, a decent HP pool, and what they did is they didn't give the, they don't give Yang Harmony, they give the Yin Harmony, like the, missile units do. And they can be, like, a little bit of, like, an anti-large rush unit, so that they can go in and they can fight on top of Jade Warriors and stuff like that and really help them out in the front line, while also buffing up these guys' melee combat. That was my idea. I'm sure you could come up with a bunch of other really good ideas for a unit like that. Just something so that Cathay can, like, split push a little bit better. Anything, please, dude. They have so many problems recontesting points. But, you know, Cathay, you can win with Cathay. It's just their roster being limited. Just makes them feel very samey. They're pretty hard to, the harmony's pretty hard to play around sometimes. So they tend to get lost in the mix. And a lot of, like, high-level people don't love to play them, but apparently, not Anticity, Outer Region was playing them pretty recently and got to semifinals with them, so a little bit of proof in point that they can do well. They're just very reliant on some gimmicky type of stuff, as well as very, very pinpoint positioning in micro to get the dubs. Eltharion rolling around out here, Fireborn just mopping up a horde of peasant horsemen. Not great. Cathay actually really needs their peasant horsemen to do a lot of work for them. Their cap weight isn't amazing, but it's pretty reasonable. And they have to do a lot of, like, capping in the early game for Cathay. So them getting folded up out here by the Fireborn is just really brutal, man. On the Fireborn, you know, not a ton of value on the board per se, but this is two 400 gold units, so 800 gold value in total has been dealt with very handily by the Fireborn, and none of these guys are rallying in all likelihood. I mean, they're too beat up now. And in fact, I think they're both shattered now. Or this one's shattered, and the other one might as well be shattered. It's taking too much damage for them to rally anytime soon. Mao is fighting down in the pits. There is a light mage. Okay, so so light magic is really good, right? But against Cathay, I don't think it's going to be very strong. Like, your mobility already outclasses Cathay's mobility. You don't really need any extra help in that regard. Like, catching them, sure. But typically you want to combo your Nets of Amyntok with, like, really overwhelming firepower. And, like, what's the point of netting down, like, a Jade Warrior? They're already super slow. They're not so resilient to missile fire. And, like, netting them down, they still have the same, like, resilience to the missile fire as if you were just shooting them to begin with. So, I think, honestly, you could do light magic in this matchup, but you should bring Barona's Time Warp. And, Shem's Burning Gaze. Because Shem's Burning Gaze is actually pretty good against, stuff like Crane Gunners. Can hammer them down pretty badly, and then also against cannons. Both of which are pretty dangerous for the High Elves. I think that would be much better than Net of Amyntok. And, you know, Barona's Time Warp is an AoE melee attack and speed buff. And it lasts for a long time, and that'd be really good for the White Lions right now, because they could be absolutely brutalizing the Jade Warriors with that buff right now. That'd be something I would like to see. So, Crane Gunners, one of them is fairly safe, but one is dead now. Jade Lancers come out, and they do punish the Illyrian Reaver Archers for the dive, which is unfortunate. Light Mage being pushed back. Not that it matters much. This guy's kind of useless. There's, like, just nothing for him to target right now. The Fireborn running around out here looking for an opportunity to get in somewhere and get some good damage down. Now, like I said, they've already killed quite a bit. But now Crane Gunners are just poking them down at range, and that's just a really terrible situation for them. It's an 1,800 gold unit, and they are a hard carry piece for the High Elves. They have to get good value. Just because they're the only unit that is anti-large and also armor piercing. So not only are they needed for killing like dragon form Mao Ying, but also for getting like hammering rear charges on Jade Warriors, killing Jade Lancers, a lot of otherwise fairly annoying units that the Cathay forces can throw out on the field. Rangers moving up. Jade Lancers just going right for the caster. Looks like Ristu is noticing that, is going to try and micro away. Rangers just kind of waddle into the cavalry, and since they didn't have their charge animations, they just kind of flop into the Rangers. And the Jade Lancers will just lose this one-on-one now, because the Rangers have better stats for sustained melee. Even though these guys have 100 armor, there is at least physical resistance, keeping the Rangers a little bit healthier than they otherwise would be. And like I said, just solid combat stats from the Rangers is going to grind these guys down eventually. So you just gotta be a little more on top of your micro here for the Jade Lancer play. Fireborn, they do crush one Jade Warrior. They get a pretty good charge through the front line onto the other. If you bring a unit like the Fireborn, even if you do bring one mage, High Elves have enough magic recharge. They've got an item called the Starwood Staff on their standard mages that gives a ton of extra winds of magic. You can bring double mage with Starwood Staff and just pop that on cooldown and just get a ton of extra WOM, and then you can bring like a little bit of healing magic. But there is Apotheosis on Eltharion. He really should be using this on the Fireborn right now, because they've got 33 models left. They can heal up to like half their HP. Should be 34... With 33 models, how much would it be? It'd be like 3,700 HP. No, 3,600. And that's, you know, quite a bit of healing. That would be very effective on these guys. So I would really like to see that. I think, though, that he's used a lot of his magic casting Tempest on Mao Ying as she's been getting up in the air. I've seen more Nets of Amantok. I just don't agree with using them here. Like, for what purpose? She's already, like, on the ground in a position where she can't really be shot. And she's in her human form, so she's pretty slow. If your units can hit her already, you don't really need to use net. And it's not like it's all that damaging either. Jade Lancer's pushing around, running over a lot of the infantry. The High Elves are losing a bit of momentum, and they do have a little bit of an unfortunate blob going on here. And the Empress Croman, dude, Empress Croman could really flip this around. They're just landing in combat. If they just hovered above this and dropped their grenades, they would do a ton of work against those High Elves there. That's on... And arguably, that's why you bring the Empress Croman. If you're just going to use Croman to, like, charge into the rear of fights, just bring the standard ones. You bring the Empress Croman unit for the Nangao grenades. They get a little bit of extra stats as an ROR, but the thing about ROR units is oftentimes, if you're just bringing them for extra stats, it's not really worth it. Like, the stats are nice, but they're for like 200 gold or even more. It's just chevrons, and chevrons are fine if you've got the extra gold, but not really worth it for just the pure stat differential. It's the abilities that you bring RORs for. That's what really differentiates those units. They just bring extra utility that you're lacking elsewhere. And the Empress's Croman are so good at just bombing units off the field with the Nangao grenades. They can get so much more value than they got here. They did do pretty well. I mean, they helped Cathay win a fight up here, which is awesome, but they could probably have like 1,500 value if they used both of these grenade abilities that they've got bound. Otherwise, like I said, you probably could have gotten 720 gold on a, 700 gold regular Onyx Croman instead of this 950 gold one. Lyrian Reaver Archers moving in. Looking to poke away. High Elves are looking a little sketchy now. They don't have a ton on the field they can really threaten. The White Lions are nice. Eltharion is pretty low. Mao Ying is getting poked down. If Mao Ying goes down, then the High Elves can get back in this game. It's just looking a little difficult. And this Grand Cannon back here. Looks like... Oh, the War Lions dove in on this thing. Looks like they got massacred pretty badly. I would guess by either this Halberd unit that's like moving up now, or some Jade Lancers might have come back to help out. But nonetheless, you know, it's gotten good value, but it's only down to one model. It's not going to be that impactful at this point. Are they about to fire it? Come on. Do it. Yeah. Oh, just missing Eltharion. Yeah, another Tempest going down on Mao Ying. Although she does get out of the Dragon form, that is really good micro from Zetern. Popping the human form to get out of that spellcast, maybe gonna save her for a little bit here. She needs a heal. Oh, and what is this? What the hell is being cast on Eltharion? Wait, Final Transmutation? Oh, the Alchemist! Sneaky Alchemist. Hitting Eltharion with the Final Transmutation. Not killing him or breaking his leadership, though, and I think he might be able to kill Mao Ying. No, he breaks. They both break. And the Halberds are going to be able to screen him away a little bit. Still missing with that dang cannon. Star Dragon out on the field. What the hell is it doing back here? You cannot have it doing something like this. This is like a... It's like a 2,400 gold monster. It needs to be on the front line getting terror outs. That will be pretty tough, though. I mean, the Zhanggu War Drum does give ITP. So, I don't know, man. High Elves are a tough faction because you either really need to play into the big monsters or you need to really play into the bow lines that they can bring, and I don't feel like the High Elves are doing a very good job of doing either or. They're bringing out, they've got their skirmish cav just getting chased around the battlefield right now. Onyx Crowman doing some shenanigans in the back line. Peasant Horsemen also pushing these guys back, and Cathay has just been playing the objectives really well in the mid-game here, while the High Elves have not been developing out any mobility that can hammer against the Jade Lancers and Peasant Horsemen. And these guys are kind of taking over the game, man. The Jade Lancers especially have gotten some pretty solid value. It's close enough, though, that the High Elves, they can get back in this. Like, they've still got a ticket lead. They've got to get a point now. They need to stop fighting by this damn war drum. I've done this so many times. I don't mean to sound frustrated about it, but speaking from personal experience, never, ever, ever, ever take a fight against a Zhanggu war drum formation. It is never going to be a good time for you. Like, one, the Jade Warriors are actually dangerous now, with all the buffs that they're getting, and the extra harmony. As well as the fact that this thing also gives, like I said, that ITP, and it gives a bunch more leadership from Icon of the Great Cities. You are never ever going to be able to finish these guys off. Look how much leadership they've got. They've taken a little bit of damage. And they've got 94 leadership, getting up to 108 since they're charging into combat now. That's functionally unbreakable. That is not a fun fight. That's slamming your head against a brick wall. Yeah, maybe your head is thick and sturdy enough to eventually break through it, but you're probably going to concuss yourself no matter what. Is that really worth it? You know, these are the metaphysical questions one must ask themselves in some of these matchups, you know. And Eltharion actually dies here in Mao Ying. 308 HP. She's on death's bed, but she's still hanging out, and the Star Dragon is just not being used very well. Ristu is just making some, just making a few mistakes that, you know, are fairly obvious, like, new player mistakes. This big monster needed to be the first summon. If you bring one of these in your formation, and you want it to come out and help in, like, the single entity duels, it's your first summon, because then you could have actually gooned out Mao Ying instead of faffing about with her for ages while she's been healing herself the whole time, and also still getting, you know, a little bit of value, I guess. She's not that impactful on the value front usually, but again, sometimes your Lord just needs to stay alive. She's been soaking up so much of the attention from the High Elves, and a lot of this value is tied up in Mao Ying. She's probably gotten about 1,000 healing in here. You know, and that's enough to explain what's going on the battlefield here. Like, you just got a bunch of infantry slowly grinding down the poor High Elf units. And the High Elves, you know, like all the other units that they've got in here, are just not quite getting it done here. You know, poor old Warlines. Warlines are doing some good damage here, though. They're a pretty effective unit if they can countercharge Jade Lancers and stuff. The problem that Warlines run into is when they get charged down or when they're isolated. That's when they really fall off. Because their melee attack and melee defense is solid, but they're pretty low armor and they don't have a ton of HP. It's pretty good for 24 models, but they can just get surrounded and dragged into the pits eventually. Halves are rallying here, though. I don't know if they're going to be able to win on points, though, because if Cathay just gets, like, one infantry unit up here, they'll be just fine until the clock runs out. And they've also got a peasant horseman here. Alright, don't throw this game at the end here, Cathay. This would be absolutely devastating to watch happen. You've got unengaged infantry over here. You've got so much cap weight on this one objective. This is another thing that you need to recognize. Because the quicker you can start recognizing when you have too many infantry units on one point, the sooner you won't be losing games that you really shouldn't be losing. Just send the Jade Warrior up to the number 2 to hold it off from these spearmen. I don't know if these peasant horsemen are going to take this point in time either, because the white lions are going to flip that back. Alright, now you send the peasant horsemen to the middle objective to slow the cap down. You cannot lose this. It's not quite triple cap territory yet, I don't think. Although, maybe it is. When the points are this close, sometimes it's a little hard to do the calculations quickly in your head. God, it's making me nervous for Grand Cathay. It's usually better to just have something to hold the caps that you do have, instead of trying to cap away something. Like, it was really, honestly, a pretty good idea, though, to send something here to pull the White Lions there initially. But just the second you see them get on that point, immediately transition over to start holding this point. And then, like I said, like this Jade Warrior is just been sitting over here for ages, not doing anything even. It's not even flanking this fight to get any extra damage in. Could have been hanging on to this point over there. It is triple cap territory, so Cathay was able to hold that point just long enough, it looks like. So I do believe they'll be able to win this. You know, maybe it was just, you know, a 500 IQ play. And Zedern just knew that all he needed to do was hang on to this. Really well done by both players. There's just a few things the Hells needed to do differently. And for Cathay, I mean, I would have gotten on this point a little bit sooner. It was just making me a little anxious. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut, though, because they are going to get this win here. And the infantry unit being over here now is actually paying off quite nicely. So there is a fair amount of cap weight coming up onto this point. Yeah, I mean, maybe it was the right call, because the High Elves are actually flipping the cap weight, and having that whole extra fresh Jade Warrior is keeping this on standby. Or on lock, I should say. Crazy close game, dude. Holy. Okay, that's good to know, Zetern. I just play aggressive factions. I'm not used to playing stuff like Cathay a ton, so when I see opponents capping objectives at the end that I'm holding, and I have unengaged infantry, I'm always willing to move them around. But, you know, Cathay's sticking together. I mean, it works, you know. You are more experienced on the faction than I am, so I defer to your judgment. I'm speaking from a place of anxiety, and I apologize. But yeah. Honestly, Nangao Grenadiers, you're talking about them, I assume? When you're talking about the bombers? Oh, the Empress Croman. Yeah, dude, the Empress Croman bomb ability is crazy strong. Even with half their models like that unit had, if they had hovered above that, they would have gotten all that same value and crushed the units in that fight. And then they could have gone and gotten another rear charge elsewhere. It would have been just a little bit more value for you. It didn't matter in this game, obviously, but for the future, like in games that skew to be even closer than that one play could have ended up making or breaking your victory there. Just learning to maximize those RORs for the value can make all the difference. Mal bugged out at the end. Oh, sheep buggy. That sucks, dude. I hate seeing that. There's still some stuff in the game like that, like the cockatrice I was talking about earlier. Cockatrices have a bug where when they land, if they're fighting something with similar mass to them, especially a multi-model unit, sometimes because their model is so big, they get wonky and they feels like they get stuck inside other models and then they can't pull out. And they just kind of like wiggle back and forth and just get the absolute snot kicked out of them. So that's another thing that you gotta be careful of and pay attention to is units that might be acting up and acting out, not functioning the right way. Because that can lose you a game just as quickly as a unit being bad outright, you know? Ristu did really well for this high elf build. Just stay away from the Zhanggu War Drums. I've fumbled so many games against Cathay by trying to kill those kind of formations, and it's just not worth the effort. Just fight over the other two objectives and pull Cathay apart, and you'll do way better than just grinding away into all of that chicanery. Good value on the Alchemist. Really impressive value. I mean, 2,300 is really good for such a cheap caster, because that caster's like, what, 750 gold? What all do you have on this caster? Let me go take a look. Whoops. Where it at? That's Cathay Lizards. Cathay Warriors? Hell is the one we just saw? Oh, here it is. Yeah, Searing Doom and Final Transmutation. I do like those spells. They're really good. You should try out the Plague of Rust double alchemist nonsense, because you can get so much spell mastery. You can lower your opponent's armor by like 90. And you can imbue like 0 armor on your opponent's units. It's pretty crazy. Berserk did it to me one time when I was playing Khorne, and he brought a bunch of Jade Lancers, or I was playing Warriors of Chaos, but he brought a bunch of Jade Lancers and then the Longma Riders, and he used a Overcast Plague of Rust with all of the buffs from the Mastery of the Elemental Winds. And basically, with one charge from a Longbow Rider, one-shot the ROR Doom Knight unit. Which was brutal. It was so gross. And then he did that to a couple Chaos Warriors, and I just conceded. It's pretty crazy how strong it is. It seems like a very, very underutilized combo. But yeah, you just like cut everything on these guys. 509, that's so crazy. That's so cost effective, quadrupling your value. I ought to give it up to you, man. That's impressive. That's a lot of value out of one caster. We watched this one. Did we watch this one? I don't think so. Oh my god, it's Queek! I just realized. We got a Queek champion. No way. With all the abilities. No freaking shot. I didn't pay attention if Zeus had a caster or not. Hopefully he does. Skaven, High Elves. Kislev kind of, and maybe Dark Elves. I mean, there's some factions that are really reliant on magic. I think the Skaven are probably one of the more reliant on magic factions in the game. Not having the utility of the Howling Warp Gales and Warp Lightning, not to mention Flensing Ruin or the dreaded 13th spell, is pretty rough. You know, Skaven have, like, very skewed, like, value on their units in terms of, like, where you can actually get it, and their casters are so cost-effective. Not bringing them is just a huge no-no, in my opinion. This is a faction where I think they're very required. Queek is such a cool model, man. He's really good in combat. He's got quite a bit of leadership, too. Trophy Heads is an amazing debuff. He doesn't even, like, need to be all that close. Like, 150 meters? He can pop this from, like, one objective to another and give, like, a Clan Rat the opportunity to kill, like, a squishy lord. It's pretty crazy, but foot characters in general can fall off pretty hard. Oh my god, and a Deathfrost caster? Yikes. I mean, to be fair, Deathfrost is pretty good against the Skaven in general, just because their lords are pretty squishy. Okay, just extended cast range. But 20 seconds, dude. That is so long. Queek's gonna die from, like, 2 more casts. Yeah, 2 more casts is gonna kill Queek outright, I think. Which is gonna really suck. Or maybe it'll need to be 3, actually. But I think 2 will break him. 3 will 100% guarantee a kill because, you know, the damage does vary a little bit. I'm not sure if that was on the lower end of it, but I think it was, because this is almost double the duration of Spirit Leech. Spirit Leech typically does like 600 to 700 damage. Maybe a little bit more, so I don't know. We'll see how it ends up playing out over the long term. Good usage on the Plague Claw Catapult. Getting some good damage on the Kislev Warriors. This is a little bit too tight of a front line. You don't really want to do like no space like front lines like this. Just because like when units pile in, they'll like occupy multiple units if they're too close together. That's why people do the spacing. The like Maniple style of spacing. Staggering in their formations. You can do it even like this. As long as there's a little bit of room between them. Because it means that your units get engaged in like clear one-on-ones. Instead of like one unit running in. And then the formations like overlapping. And then your units kind of like pile in awkwardly on the side. and they leave themselves really open for extra damage, as well as avoiding any like wind spells that'll just absolutely destroy formations like this. Luckily, the Skaven don't have anything like that. But if a Skaven player, God forbid they had Crack's Call right now, because it would probably one-shot 2 Kossar units, or even these 2 armored Kossars, because I think the upgraded version has a ton of AP damage. The Avalanche Mortars are having a perfectly fine time, though. Kislev is being really passive in the face of all this firepower, and they're doing some really risky shenanigans back here with the Ice Witch. Like, she's a decent duelist on the bear, but against the Skaven, who have so many bodies and cheap mass with, like, rat ogres, running her around alone like this, not a very good idea. And the Vikstrand's Death Squad actually get on top of her. Definitely want to stop firing at her with the catapults. Like, they can do damage to her if they hit square, but these have a lot of explosion damage as opposed to, like, mostly missile damage. Excuse me. So the Kislevite Warriors are definitely the better target. And they're wearing them down pretty nicely. Skaven being pretty passive back here. Not the worst thing in the world. They're doing fine. They can just keep utilizing the Avalanche Mortars to, like, grind value about here. Although they are getting picked apart by this Snow Leopard. Snow Leopard summon actually killing a lot of models on the Avalanche Mortars right now. Queek is also getting really low, and he still hasn't really done anything. And he's, like, beating up on the Snow Leopard, but, you know, it is just the summon from the caster. So, you know, that's not ideal. 9 models left. Avalanche Mortars could probably kill, like, 2 more infantry units with what they've got left, volley-wise. They can be a little inaccurate sometimes, but they just do so much damage when they hit square, dude. And, Skaven are getting... I would say they're ahead. Like, the only units that have taken damage is the Avalanche Mortars and Queek, and Kislev's front line is just absolutely screwed right now. I mean, they've just gotten hammered to pieces. So the Skaven, yeah, they may have lost HP on higher value targets, but overall, I think they're in a more dominant position because they should be able to grind through what remains of the infantry, just with the bodies they've got available, which is going to be pretty brutal for them in the long term. Although they could get back in this if the Things in the Woods just kill the Poison Wind Mortar team and the Plague Claw Catapult. You gotta defend your weapon teams as a Skaven, dude. You just can't leave them open like this. They're so squishy. If you don't have them in your main formation, then you need to have, like, dedicated protection back here. Like, there needed to be more Rat Ogres protecting, or just more, like, Clan Rats doing stuff. Because that Poison Wind Mortar was a lot of gold value to lose. And, you know, the Skaven, like, with their weapon teams in the field, they can easily finish off all these Kislevite forces. Without the weapon teams, they would probably lose, even though they have a very clear numbers advantage by a pretty wide margin. Luckily, they've got these freaking Avalanche Mortars, dude. Just one volley, and they halved the HP on this Kossar. Honestly, even worse. These guys are just getting massacred. And the Warpfire Throwers haven't been doing terribly either. Kislev had no answers for this unit. You have to game plan for these guys. Because anytime you're bringing infantry, these guys just hard counter any kind of infantry formation. And that's typically where Skaven struggle the most. Is in, like, long, grinding games with a lot of infantry on the field, just because, you know, they got poor quality infantry overall. Being able to even that out by just bombarding your opponent's infantry into oblivion. That's how the Skaven get ahead, and that's how they stay ahead. Mordheim Beowulf's coming up. They get on top of the Warpfire Thrower and rip them to pieces in no time, man. Big ouch. And the Horse Archers, they kill a Wolf Rat over here. I saw them fighting it for a little while. And it looks like they're also wearing down the Rat Ogres, and yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. The Plague Claw Catapult goes down. Used most of its ammo, but didn't get its 900 gold cost back. Wow, dude, these things in the woods, what the hell have they... Oh, well, they killed the weapon team here. They killed the cannon. That seems about right for how much value they've got. Kislev's probably just, like, right back in this game. Despite the Avalanche Mortars just farming their infantry for free. They've done enough in the backfield here to even this game up, I think. They killed all the other weapon teams. These guys are about to run out of ammunition, too. In Kislev Infantry, you know, these guys are all really tattered. But, you know, there's, like, enough tattered bow units here. They should be able to kill the Plague Monks and be able to hold on to the double cap that they've still got. So, they should be fine. And, it looks like Queek just went down here. Where the hell did he die? He probably died to a Death Frost, if I have to guess. But 2100 on the Ice Witch. After that initial risky opening with her, she's been used very well, and very cleanly. To just, like, snipe down Queek, go in, support with some leadership, and running around. Being a nuisance, and I think Kislev is going to get up on this last point, take that, and it's going to be game over. They got Vikstrins out here still. They haven't been used very aggressively. So, Death Runners, talk about them for a minute. They got a lot of Phys Res. Just get folded up by magic attacks, obviously. But Vikstrins also have good speed and extra melee defense. And I guess they typically have 30%. They get 40% because of their ability. As long as their leadership is higher than Wavering. They imbue Weeping Blades in their anti-infantry. They're honestly really good against Kislev. But they need to be used to flank and get good engagements in the backfield, and then you just, like, push stuff around like Rat Ogres to, like, buffer out any cav that might try to charge them down. You can use them fairly aggressively. I think they were just held back for a little too long. Waiting for who even knows what to come their way. Ice Witch getting shot up by Rattling Guns. A little bit of damage on her. As long as she doesn't die, Kislev should be fine. Even if she did go down, I think they'd still be perfectly a-okay. They just got, you know, some Horse Archers. They got a little bit of infantry around the field. And they'll just keep developing out Dervishes and maybe some Winged Lancers to just continue to compound on the mobility advantage. Storm Vermin going down. Just terrible leadership. The Sword and Board variant is never worth the money that you pay for them. They just don't hold long enough, and their damage output sucks. The Storm Vermin Halberds are, period, far and away the better variant for you to be bringing. Like, yeah, the Storm Vermin with the Halberds don't have shields, but these guys only have a bronze shield, and they're not that much cheaper. Every time I watch Storm Vermin with the Sword and Board come out onto the field, I have been let down 90% of the time. And every time I've seen Storm Vermin with Halberds, I think I've been impressed, like, maybe 60% of the time. So you can do the math on that and figure that one out for yourself. They really need to buff the Sword and Board Vermin. I don't know what they would do. Probably just give them some more melee attack or something, or just more melee defense, or give them a silver shield. Something like that to give them a little bit more of a niche. Because they're only 100 gold cheaper with, like, half the damage output, and you can see their stats really aren't even that much better than the Halberds to begin with. Like, if these guys had 40 melee defense, the sword and boards. Or you could even get them up to like 42 or something. Then they would have the strength in numbers. They would have 50 melee defense. They would be way tough to like kill in melee with something that isn't specialized at killing armored infantry. And I think that's where the sword and board infantry are like best situated, because you know that's kind of where Black Orcs are, sort of. Black Orcs, or ITP at least, they have a silver shield. Their melee defense isn't in the 50s, but they got a ton more weapon strength than the Storm Vermin do. They got fewer models, but like the same amount of HP. They have more HP, actually. Wow, okay. Leadership's like the same, but Black Orcs actually get their money's worth. And Storm Vermin just leave you asking why. Why are they like this? What are some other good sword and board infantry? Oh yeah, the Chaos Warriors of Khorne. They're a little cheaper too. Oh, excuse me. Graveguard. Graveguard are a little different because they're undead. But, I mean, the common denominator is, like, good weapon strength, or, like, a good, boost to their, like, damage output in some respect. Either a bonus versus infantry, or frenzy, or, like, the Black Orcs just having really high weapon strength, and then, like, you know, the Wa, which gives them more, melee attack. Marauder Champions, they just straight up have 53 melee defense. And then Zargard. Heller Zargard. Kislev, there you are. Yeah. See. It's the silver shield and the high melee defense, with like reasonable weapon strength that makes sword and board infantry good, and the Storm Vermin don't have any of that. They just fall off so hard. It's a little unfortunate. We did see this one. It's a good game. If you want to see this game, go check out the VOD from Saturday. Seen this one. This is a duplicate. We did not see triple cannon with Marcus. Okay. Honestly, triple cannon against the Skaven's not a bad idea. Because Skaven don't have a lot of really fast units to get into the back line. Now, they do have a lot of stalk, potentially. Which is why I like to have, like, at least one or two Eshin Triads and or Death Runners. Because those guys, you know, having the concealment bombs and stalk are really good at sneaking around the edges of the map. And then ambushing your opponent's, like, cannon positions. And the Skaven do need to get rid of cannons, because their weapon teams, they're pretty long range, but they get massively outranged by cannons, which is really brutal, and cannons just wreak havoc on the Skaven weapon teams. You know? It's not a fight that you can really afford to just let play out. Marcus, doing his thing, trotting around. He's a cool lord, man. Really underrated, very strong in quite a few matchups. One of the better anti-large bow characters in the game, because there's like a Lethanar. The Druzhina is good, but mostly just because he can restock ammo on Kislevite units. Marcus Wolfheart is just like actually good at what he's intended to be good at, which is being a hunter. Shooting down big targets, poking away at stuff, snares, you know, the amber bow, focus shot, both really good,
Keep it from the foe.
like, abilities, I guess. Well, the amber bow is an item, technically, but really good abilities that do good damage to SCs, as you can see. They're also fairly decent against, like, Jezzail-type units as well. Not like they're best use, but they can contribute pretty well there. Natty Bubo's hitting the Outriders. The cannons are trying to shoot the caster here. The caster is getting pounded pretty badly, and Snicketch does find Marcus here. Pretty good jump on him. Putting a big beat down on this guy, unfortunately, for the Empire. Get out of there, Marcus. Run. Run for your life. Cloak of Shadows. Really good debuff. Lowering melee defense by 10 is no joke, man. Kind of fortunate to get away. Does not have... Oh, no sigil? Are you kidding me? You don't need Slippery. You can cut this, and please bring Deathmaster's Sigil, because it's really strong. It does damage to SEs, and it also snares them. It's not a long snare by any means, but it's usually enough for Snicketch with his decent speed to like close the gap and at least get a couple of attacks in. I recommend it all the time. And you can also use it if you sneak in on your opponent's Lord and they don't notice. You can use it to like stop your opponent's Lord from disengaging, and then you can just pummel them to death at that point. So there's a lot of nice utility to it. Swordsmen get obliterated by the Whirl of Weeping Blades, which is really cool. Super awesome to see somebody using it. Just using something other than Ikat, honestly, and having a little bit of success for sure. Oh, you can't let this happen. Flagellant's getting on top of the Natty Bubo Sharpshooters. Please don't let it end this way for them. So, just run away with these guys. Because the Flagellants are unbreakable. Like, getting all these flank charges on them is not great. It's not really doing a whole lot. Luckily, not a lot of these dudes are locked in combat, and they're getting killed quickly enough that they aren't going to be able to do catastrophic damage to the Natty Bubos. That could have ended in disaster, but Winter was able to intercept with the Wolf Rats and with a Clanrat Spear, just able to save this weapon team. Doomflayers doing pretty well, just running over a lot of units. Snicketch is pushing back the Outriders here. Doomflayers do get absolutely canned by the artillery. The artillery is pretty uncontested. Looks like they've been taking some damage from the Plagueclaw Catapult. You can just turn all your cannons here and kill this Plagueclaw in like 2 volleys, probably. Because, like I said, Plagueclaws and Warp Lightning Cannons, they're very bulky. They're pretty easy models to hit, and they just take a ton of damage, and they die pretty fast, so that's where I would be focusing my efforts. Because other than that, there's not a lot to shoot at. They're shooting the Natty Bubos, which is all... I mean, that's a good target, too. Finish these guys, then finish off the Plagueclaw. I don't hate that. What the hell is going on with this Plagueclaw Catapult? What is obstructing it? It's not firing. It's on fire at will. Otherwise, it wouldn't be giving the icon there, which is telling me it's trying to shoot. I don't know what's stopping it. A little frustrating for the Skaven for sure. Snicketch getting in here. He is finding the Bright Wizard, who is on foot too. He's going to get absolutely folded by Snicketch. There's not a lot to save him either. The Empire Knights are actually routing now. Partially thanks to the Cloak of Shadows, which lowers leadership a little bit. Big slap from Snicketch there. Bright Wizard's going to be going down. The Empire is up in value. Yeah, they'll probably be okay. It seems like the Skaven are struggling a little bit thanks to the triple cannon. I think they've just been overextending a little too much, trying to get way back there and do damage to these things. Just a lot of dead wolf rats all over the place, which speaks to a pretty horrendous trading situation. You got the Doomflayers up here also. Yeah, and the Doomflayers are very expensive, so losing a bunch of wolf rats and 2 Doomflayers, like yellow charging up in here, and also losing your cannon, and the fresh Jezzail, pretty rough, dude. Gonna be really hard to come back. Wolf Rat's break. Zap Zap Cannon out here on the field. Snicketch in the open, getting massacred by missile fire. Huntsmen, Pistoliers. Pistoliers are so good, dude. Really, really strong unit for the Empire. Oh, and Marcus actually survived. Where the hell has he been? Sneaking around, man.
No,
Tricky boy.
the enemy has slain our lord.
Yeah, Snicketch dies, and the Empire is 5,000 gold value up right now. They're not gonna lose this game. And they kill the Zap Zap
You
Cannon. Just
have been bested.
brutal, man. Ouch.
There is only defeat.
To be honest, I don't know if there's a lot the Skaven could have done there. This triple cannon, it's gonna shut down the weapon team play really hard. That's kind of what Winter was skewing towards. Also shuts down the Doomflayers, although I don't think Doomflayers are very good against Empire in general. Empire with all the good shooting, and like ready access to high mass cavalry. Doomflayers are. It's going to take them forever to get their value back running over Empire State Troopers. Just not good enough. Probably don't need them ever here. Maybe one in the back pocket in case of great swords. That's about it. More Rat Ogres. More Rat Ogres against the Empire, please. Rat Ogres are great at countercharging the Empire heavy cavalry. They do a ton of damage to them. It gets really rough for Empire when they've got to run into like Rat Ogre positions, because they countercharge. They've got good AP. They slap the Knights up pretty badly, and then you just like swarm them with like crappy spears and stuff and drag them down one by one. I'm just not protecting the missile units enough, man. Like, it is hard, but sometimes you gotta cut your losses. Like, if you see triple cannon from your opponent, do not summon in more weapon teams and artillery pieces, because you will keep losing the duel. Because the Great Cannons got great value here. 1100, 1100, 900. They had a ton of ammo left. And, you know, some of that value is not truly reflective, because they did kill the Plague Claw catapults. And they probably killed a fair number of the actual catapult models, which then didn't give the cannons a bunch of value. And then when the crew died, it probably gave a bunch of value to one of these Empire Knights or something. So it's a little bit funky. Cannons really carried that game. Really cool build. Not a ton done for the Bright Wizard. Didn't really need to, honestly. This is a pretty small Skaven opener, which I don't think is a bad idea against the Empire. Just get rid of the Doomflayers and bring, honestly, bring some Nightrunner slings. Nightrunner slings are pretty good at poking down Huntsmen, Flagellants, and like spears and stuff, and they're cheap enough that it's going to take a long time for cannons to kill them, one, and also get their value back. So sometimes cheaper it really is better. Did we watch this one already? I don't remember, so we'll get in here. It's a Life Slan with a decent amount of infantry support. They do need to be really careful with these Croxies, because the Croxigors will get absolutely massacred by the Halberds without support. Same thing with the Skinks. The Red Crested Skinks are going to need to do a lot of heavy lifting in the frontline fight, while the other Skink units and the Croxigors probably try to flank around. This is going to be a rough map to go up against Cathay on, because this is the kind of map where the Zhangu Wardrome is a lot harder to avoid.
This the Storm Dragon swears to you.
Because it can just push up onto the middle objective and sit there for forever. And, like, pushing onto back points is already risky. And Skinks really suffer against heavy cav, and Cathay with Jade Lancers can really hammer the little guys down. So the lizards need to be really careful about how they engage that formation. They can do it for sure. They're going to have to be really pinpoint. They're going to need to use the skink cohorts with javelins to kill the peasant long spears, and then send those guys to flank around with the melee skink cohort to help the Kroxigors get rid of the crane gunners, while, you know, like, all of the Cathay units will be in disarray, trying to, like, peel for all that stuff. And then you can send the red-crested skinks in to start engaging the heavily armored Jade Warriors, where they can get some good damage in. I don't know how you kill the Zhanggu Wardrum with what you have. There's not really anything geared up for that. Hopefully there's something in the reserves. We'll have to see. We gotta get a bunch of javelins in early. Yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible idea to throw at the halberds, you know, but I wouldn't take the engagement now. These guys are getting Disdain of the Dragon Emperor. They will hit against the low melee defense of the red-crested skinks pretty consistently. Now that they're getting Harmony, they're even more sauced up. Let's see if Reek is able to make it happen here. There's a big flank coming up through the forest, which is nice to see. You know, use terrain to your advantage. It's not a bad idea. And there are some good picks to be found here. Like, the red-crested skinks just ignore, or they can attack the halberd, actually, because they don't have Harmony here, or the Wardrum. This is actually when you do want to take a head-up fight. And the Kroxigor, use the javelins to, like, hammer down this long spear. Like, you can probably kill it outright with all 3 volleys from the javelins. You can use the Kroxigors to fix the other long spear, or to push through onto the crane guns and get rid of those guys. Oof, Jade Warrior Halberd's even folded up here. Oh my goodness. Slain Mage Priest being focused right now, taking a bunch of damage. One red-crested skink pushed back here. But Kroxigors just get right around the flank, and they're, you know, beelining it straight for the artillery, which is, honestly, in this position, not a bad idea. Because Jade Lancers just came out, more Peasant Horsemen. They're not going to be able to peel the Kroxigors. This is a good example of, like, a risky dive, but being done in such a way that it's going to, like, be maximally effective. Because, you know, Cathay's already bad for peeling, or really bad at peeling for the ranged units against heavy armor. And these guys being an anti-infantry unit, like, they actually killed 2 of the models on the cannon crew already. They should be able to kill 1 more. If not, they actually rout the crew now. Man, losing out on the number 2 objectives, unfortunate. Ripperdactyls against the Empress's Crowmen. Wow, they killed 1 Ripperdactyl over here too. Oh my god, 1900 value. They're fighting 3 Ripperdactyls right now. That is unbelievable.
One of your units has been
damn. Yeah, that's how flimsy Ripperdactyls are. Ripperdactyls have to be the ones charging stuff. They're really only good against grounded infantry units. And they are a little risky. They are a little risky against factions with their Furies and their Onyx Crowmen, Harpies and Manticores and stuff like that. It's putting Rika on the back foot pretty hard right now. The infantry fight's not going too great either. This Mage Priest, the Earthbloods are nice. I just don't know how much they're going to be able to do. And Mao Ying can always go in to try and kill this Slan if need be. Well, the Alchemist does get hammered by the Legion of Chukwa, it seems. And the Cohort of Sotek, both of these elite units, fighting with their Lord, doing some pretty nice damage. And a Banishment going down on the Jade Warriors. And I mean, yeah, the Lizardmen do have the home point. Honestly, this is looking to be a little bit better for the Lizardmen now. The losing all the Ripperdactyls is not great, but they do have what you want to accomplish against Cathay already developing. Like, they've split their army into all these different fragmented pieces. There's a bunch of units with no harmony over here. Dude, did they kill the Jade Wardrum? Wow, how the hell did they kill the Jade Wardrum that quick? Oh my god. Okay, I thought it would take them a little longer than that. Jeez, guys, calm down. But yeah, they killed the Zhanggu Wardrum by isolating it and killing that one section of the formation. You got stuff being dealt with in the back line. Cathay's screwed here. This is like what happens with the Dowie, where you like get reasonably good trades early, but your opponent like stuffs you back, and then your units are so slow, and they have such good cap weight, and they're still getting reasonably good value against you that you're not going to be able to get back in the game despite being so close. I would be shocked if the Lizards lose this game, honestly. They've got good mobility counters on the field now with their Cold One Riders. They just need to save the Slan. The Slan is the only weak point in the build now. Pulling back through the Legion of Chaqua is nice. Legion of Chaqua has got great value too. 1400. Mao Ying kind of rolling up into them. Saurus are pretty beefy. They've got good mass. Can we please show it? Yeah, there we go. 190 ain't bad. The Slan just needs to keep drifting around here. Probably should have retreated back towards the cohort, the Pak cohort. That name trips me up so bad. Pak cohort. You're going to see them a lot more since they got Devastating Flanker now, which is really strong. Just throw these guys up into Mao Ying. That's all you need to do, and you're going to win this game. The cannons, there's one model left. That's not threatening at all. Cannons need all 4 models to be, like, maximally effective and dangerous. Man, all these units that are routing back here, I mean, they pushed all the way in, but they got their value back at least. Scary stuff for Grand Cathay. They seem pretty cooked. Mao Ying is getting ripped apart here as well by the Riders. Good micro turning back into human form, though. I think it's too little too late. Just the fact that the central formation got broken up like that, and then the Zhanggu Wardrum went down, that is one of the things that can be risky about those Wardrum builds, is that you're super reliant on it to keep you in battles. Because you're really planning on anchoring on, you know, like 2 points. You can't afford to get split up. What could you do differently here? Probably just start over here. Because it was a little bit of indecision about where to position the Wardrum, and also like how to take this objective. You can just go and take the middle, and if your opponent tries to take your number 1, you know, just make sure that your cannon and your ranged units are protected back here, and just shoot them off the point. Like, they can reinforce a bunch, they can do a whole lot, but if you just stay patient, keep building up, you've got the harder objective, actually, I should say, to hold already locked down with your Zhanggu formation that your opponent is either not going to want to tackle or have a really hard time with. And then if you just protect these missile units and you just keep forcing your opponent to bring stuff up here, eventually it's going to reach a crisis point where you've developed out enough protection here and gotten enough value with your missiles that you can then just push up onto your point, take it, and that'll probably be before it's triple cap territory. And then you just sit here and cackle and your opponent is screwed and they can't do anything. But, you know, again, Cathay is hard to, like, play position perfectly all the time. Mao Ying's somehow alive in here. Like, what a Chad. You know, she's not going down without a fight. I thought she was dead a minute ago, but, she, you know, human form, deceptively effective. Both as a combat unit and just for survivability, man. She's such a cool model. Her attacks are really interesting. She does that cool lightning attack. She floats up into the air and like shoots down on her enemies. Yeah, lizards are just all over the poor Cathay forces here. They're capping the middle objective also. Triple cap in, Slan hanging in on the back point. Yeah, that's going to be it. Little unfortunate. That is a pretty tough matchup for Cathay, though. Not a whole lot you can do about it sometimes. I mean, it was a really well-executed dive onto the cannons in the back line. And shutting down the crane gunners early. Losing the Riperdactyls was like the one thing that I was real nervous about, but it ended up not mattering. The infantry did well enough to make up for that. Just kept the big boy alive, the Banana Priest. The sweet siren song of many a lord lives once again to tell the tale of how he used his sonorous mating calls to bait an enemy lord into trying to overfocus him, and then he just runs away and heals up, and then they're just left holding this very unenviable bag. Well, Smokey... Okay. Okay, so this is a really tough matchup for the Dowie, usually. I'm very curious to see how Smokey Loco plays this against Getzmain. Because, quite literally, 7 times out of 10, this is a Skaven victory against the dwarves. Like, Dowie are pretty bad at beating the Skaven. Although, the Skaven don't have the Avalanche Mortars, and they don't have a bunch of Jezzails. They've got the Teethbreakers and 1 Jezzail in the opener. They've got Snickich. Snickich, honestly, is pretty meta against the dwarves. He does nasty damage with Whirl. He can duel most of the characters pretty capably. He just doesn't want to get 3v1'd by the Thanes and Belegar. But other than that, he'll be very disruptive. And the Skaven with the Jezzails at range should be able to poke down a lot of the miners before they can get in. Slayers get worn out just fighting tons of chaff, and Skaven obviously can just throw chaff out for days. And they've got some Death Runners. Death Runners will be really strong in the forest here too. They should be able to engage the miners fairly easily. I'm so curious how Smokey is going to handle this fight. 2 dwarf warriors just wandering out, doing their thing, fighting for the Karaz Angkor, and trying to kill some Raki. You know, that's their favorite pastime, besides grumbling, I guess. And drinking Bugmans, you know. Killing Raki is very, very close third on their list of to-dos on a regular basis. Warp Star going down kills more Skaven slaves than it does Dowie. Very lore-friendly Skaven caster here. He got the memo. He knows what he's supposed to be doing. Belegar's actually taken some damage. I would not be shooting Belegar. So Dowie hero squads are annoying, but not that big of a deal. Like, really, the bigger issue is like Dowie's cap weight with all their chaff. And the potential staying power as they develop out, like, gyros and rangers and stuff. So killing their front line early with your Rattling guns and your Warplock Jezzails or whatever you brought to kill that is really important. Death Runners all over the miners in the woods here. Just obliterating them. One of them did get hit by blasting charges, the other didn't. They should be able to clean this fight up pretty quickly. You know, miners not the best duelists, or the best fighters, I should say. Not necessarily duelists. And the Death Runners, they are quite good. But bombing runs potentially coming in here. Let's see it. Come on. Some good gyro play. No, not getting any gyro bombs off, but the brimstone guns do open up, and they're going to do some pretty good damage to the Death Runners. Yeah, that bombing run just straight up missed, unfortunately. That one didn't. It actually did get some damage on the Death Runners there. Pretty nice. Nothing too crazy, but certainly going to help the Slayers and the Miners win that fight. Killing Death Runners is pretty important for the Dowie, because that is one of the units that can be really devastating for them to contend with. Big mistake here. Skaven kind of leaving the Rattling Guns to just get charged by Slayers. So this is like one of the big things about the Dowie. You just don't want to let them just get on top of you sometimes. It's understandable to make micro mistakes, of course. You know, it happens to everybody, but like the Teethbreakers are a high value unit, and you really can't afford to let these waddlers get on top of them. Like a gyro getting on top of your Rattling Guns and like pushing them back and like landing on them in melee, like, yeah, what are you gonna do? It's a 110 speed unit. But Slayers and Miners are pretty slow. You can usually get enough to stop them up, and you just need these weapon teams desperately to win this matchup. And like the Teethbreakers are strong in this particular matchup for sure, but really what you want to do early against the Dwarves is you just want a ton of Warplock Jezzails. Because Jezzails hammer against shields so effectively. They kill infantry like nobody's business, especially if you focus fire. And the Dowie, just getting hammered at range and being forced to close the distance really aggressively. Because they're so slow, it's a pretty bad situation for them. And you can bring your Death Runners and your Rattling Guns out of Vanguard. Because the Teethbreakers don't have Vanguard deployment. But, Death Runners do. So, I mean, you can still bring the Teethbreakers out and trot them up. It takes a little while, but it's not that big of a deal. You bring them out when you see gyros coming up. And the gyros just getting good value against the Death Runners in the forest is losing the Skaven a lot of momentum. And like I said, Skaven are a win more faction. They need a value lead to take games. And they're usually really good at getting a good one against the Dowie early. Avalanche Mortars are also another option because they just do so much damage, again, to the infantry. And that's really what the Skaven should be focusing on. Stop shooting the heroes, please! This is a PSA. Dowie heroes are a waste of ammo. They are taking reasonable amounts of damage from the Jezzails, but it's going to take forever for the Jezzails to finish these guys off. And the piercing shots are way better at hitting these infantry units. Doomflayers finally coming in. They're another really good tool. Avalanche Mortars finally brought up. Okay, so the Skaven are getting out the right tools now. The question is whether they've just lost the caps too much in the early game to be able to get back in this. The only thing that the Skaven need to do, if they replayed this, is just bring the Avalanche Mortars out earlier. Bring the Death Runners out second, or as like a contingency. For clearing out, like, Miners and even Slayers. They do pretty good against Slayers, too. Keep the Rattling Guns alive, and have Natty Boobos not be shooting these obnoxious dwarf characters for so long. And just have them, like, firing away at the infantry. And I think you'd be better off, and could easily get a win against the dwarves from that point. The Avalanche Mortars are 1,700 if I'm not mistaken, and that's the cost of both of those Night Runners put together. So just cut those two and get the Avalanche Mortars first, because then your opponent has to go and send the gyros in to try and shoot down the Avalanche Mortars. And that's where your Rattling Guns can move up and really pound the Dowie Air Force. Another thing you should not do is use the Eshin Sorcerer in this matchup. It's not bad, But it takes a long time for Warp Stars to really pile up value, and Brittlebone is strong if you're sniping a character, but, you know, the Dowie's characters are so cheap, it usually doesn't matter. I mean, their leadership is high enough that sniping the Lord isn't that big of a deal, either. Just bring the Ruins magic, or whatever it is, and bring Warp Lightning and Howling Warp Gale. You Howling Warp Gale, Brimstone Guns, you Warp Lightning, Dowie Infantry, and you can bring Death Frenzy as well if you want, and you just use all those spells all game. It's pretty straightforward. That's your best bet in this matchup. Eshin Magic just needs some milk, dude. It's just completely lost on the Skaven roster. I would love to see, especially, like, I would love to see a magic lore overhaul in general, but especially the other two Skaven lores. Like, the spells of stealth, none of these are good, except for Warp Stars, and this can be very hard to use at times, so, I mean, how good is it really? Like, Army of Darkness is just not it. Like, this just doesn't do anything. Like, 60 armor and 20% missile resistance? Why? It's mediocre at best. Skitter Leap is, just way too short of a duration. 25 seconds? Come on, get real. Seriously? This, I swear this used to be like a minute and a half or something crazy. You could do some really fun techs with this back in the day in like Warhammer 1, or not Warhammer 1, Warhammer 2. Veil of Shadows, I still don't know what the intention for this spell is. Oh, it silences. The upgrade version silences, actually. Does it lock units in its radius? I need to test that, actually. Still, like, 10 wins of magic for this. I still don't think it's worth it. It's, like, cool, though. Brittlebone is situationally good, and Black Whirlwind just doesn't do enough damage for how much it costs, dude. I mean, I don't know what the hell was going on when they made this lore. The Ruins magic is just too effective, dude. I mean, like, the spells here are all good. Even Crack's Call. Like, you upgrade cast this, it's just filthy how much damage it does, man. But Flensing Ruin is just super OP. Warp Lightning, super strong. Howling Warp Gale, super strong. Plague Magic. You got Plague and Vermintide. Pestilent Breath is okay, clearing out some units, but Wither and Blessed with Filth really aren't all that good, you know. We need some milk here. Need a little bit of variety, CA. Alright, well, the Gyros just killed the Natty Bubo Sharpshooters. Yeah, this is pretty rough. This is over. The Skaven are screwed, dude. They're getting gyroed to pieces. Oh no, they lost Belagar. What are their 68 leadership chaff units gonna do about that? Like, losing the leadership is gonna suck, but they'll be okay. I'm gonna just trot up Dowie Warriors all day now. Not to mention Slayer Pirates and then Slayers being unbreakable. I don't think Skaven are going to get any points back. Maybe they get the home objective back, but they're losing this infantry unit here. It's Snickich and the Eshin Sorcerer hanging in. That's it. I mean, the Dowie don't have anything else over here as well, I guess. Their Thanes are, like, doing something in the trees. If they were over here, they could have held that triple cap, but they've still got the other 2 points, so pretty easy win for the Dwarves. Just need to prioritize summoning different units for the Skaven. All of the units that the Skaven player brought are good, but I think the summon order just needs to be a little different. And that's about it. A good try though, considering the situation you ended up in. Like, the reason I say you bring out more range early instead of the Death Runners is that Dowie are really slow. Like, all their infantry and characters are really slow advancing. By the time they get to you, if you need them, the Death Runners can be out on the field. They can come out of the Vanguard and they get right up in the Dowie's face from the get-go. The Avalanche Mortars can't really do that. It takes them a lot longer to get into position, and as you can see, if your frontline engagement goes really poorly early on, and you haven't, like, value traded reasonably well against the Dowie forces, they'll just bombard you to bits with their air corps. Because these gyros just got way too settled on the battlefield. Gyros are a high priority target. They're the first thing you should be game planning against when it comes to planning for the Dowie. Everything else is, you know, you gotta think about it. You gotta think about game planning for everything else, but it's a little bit less pressing because gyrocopters are just that good. They've been getting nerfs for ages now for a reason. They were restricted in numbers for so long. They just dominate games where they are left to their own devices, and they can still do that, as you can see. And that's really what lost the Skaven this matchup. So, cut these two Death Runners from the opening. Get the Avalanche Mortars in here. You can have 2 Death Runners in reserve. I don't think you really need... I mean... Nah, you can bring 2 Plague Monks. The Night Runner's fine. I don't think you need this many Rat Ogres, truth be told. Rat Ogres don't do well against the Dwarves. Rat Ogres are a staple in most Skaven matchups, but just because they're a core unit in 80% of matchups doesn't mean they're good in every single one. Dowie are really good at killing, like, squishy monsters infantry like this. They're good at killing Minotaur. If they're good at killing Minotaurs, they're going to be really good at killing Rat Ogres. Because Minotaurs are much tougher and way better damage output, and the Rat Ogres are squishy. And there's really not much else to say. Probably just need one of these guys if you really want some. But you can probably cut both of them and get another Jezzail in here. And another Doomflayer. I think that'd be better for you. I guess you'd have some leftover money from the Avalanche Mortar, so then you could have, like, a Rat Ogre or 2. We did watch this one. Yeah, the Chariots just steamroll poor Winter here. It was really unfortunate. We saw this as well. Alright, we're on our last one. This one got posted after the tournament. This is the finals game. You can go back to Saturday and check this one out if you want. Let's get into it. We got 30 to 50 feral hogs, a man after my heart. Or a person after my heart. I don't want to make assumptions here. Asbjorn, just coming in here with good old Silostra, man. On the Crabbo. Crabbo Stabbo incoming. You know, a lot of depth guard in the opening. You don't usually see depth guard come out in the early game for Vampire Coast, but it honestly does kind of make sense against the vampire counts. This matchup in Warhammer 2 was basically impossible for the Vampire Coast to win. I honestly don't know how it plays out now, though. I don't imagine it's gotten much better for them, though. It's probably still pretty rough. And there is a pretty strong counter on the field for the depth guard already. In the form of the Black Coach. The form of Giant Shark. Now, the Black Coach is going to run over those guys pretty badly. With reasonably good micro, Black Coach can just dominate the mobility game. It is an amazing unit. So strong. Very good against infantry. Tons of good abilities, too, man. And ever since the rework, you actually get these charged up pretty quickly. And it's nice. It's just a nice unit. You don't see it a ton. You know, there's definitely matchups where it falls off. But I think it can do really well here. It'll control Sirens. It can run over Depth Guard. It's also a fairly, like, reasonably tanky single entity. With its HP and just being fast and disruptive that the bomber mobs aren't probably gonna end up wasting a bunch of ammo if they're on fire at will. The handguns can shoot it down though, so that is gonna be something it needs to watch out for. We'll see. We will see how Hogs deals with this. The opening engagement is going to be probably the most important engagement in the entire game for the vampire counts. Because if they get just munched on the way in, the Vampire Coast are probably going to be able to just, like, set up a shooting gallery for the rest of the game and just bombard them off the field. But if they're patient, they build up a little bit, and then they engage the missile line they should be perfectly okay. Dire Wolves and the Dire Pack coming out. Lamian Caster with some Raise Dead action. What the hell is this? Pendulum? Oh, she does have Penumbral Pendulum. Okay. Dude, that did a lot of damage. I'm kind of surprised. Does have the double Necromancer with the, you know, Forbidden Rod business. Dirty old men in the trees. You know. Touching themselves. Doing unspeakable acts for the benefits of their Necromancer master. Rotting Promethean summon used on zombies. Okay. Oh, on a Skeleton Warrior. I mean, still not a very good use of this. You got Vangeist, too. What the hell? I mean, Vangeist, honestly, probably not bad against the vampire counts. I just don't think you need Denizens of the Deep. This is better for, like, popping onto, like, gun lines and stuff. Against the vampire counts, that's a lot of Winds of Magic to do less than half the HP of a Skeleton Warrior. Yikes. We'll see if Asbjorn is able to settle in here and find some better opportunities. Playing very passively for somebody who has pushed off 2 objectives. Like, you don't want to push too far out, but you can take a little more ground than just sitting on your home objective. God, yeah, I mean, I'm just, like, looking at the state of the battlefield, and I'm just thinking about it, and I'm becoming more and more convinced that this is still a horrible matchup for the Vampire Coast. I honestly, bombers might be really bad here. Yeah, they got fire damage. Theoretically, they could really punish Crypt Horrors. But there's just so many, like, summons that could be popped on these guys. Fellbats, Dire Wolves getting on them. The front line is pretty thin, too. So look at all this space here. You cannot do this as Vampire Coast. Any gunline faction, really. This is way too wide to have your units spread out, and you don't have anything quick to get up between this. Like, yeah, zombies can't really take advantage of that, but, these Fellbats and the Dire Wolves, what they should be doing right now is just screaming up through the middle of this formation right now. Either that, or, honestly, actually, forget that. Just get onto the handguns over here, because the bombers are, like, way too far out of position to help them. Send the Dire Wolves in here, send the Dire Pack around with the Fellbats to get onto the other handgun. Your opponent's going to be completely locked out, and you can use the zombie summon here on this one. Song of Enthrallment being used, debuffing, melee attack and speed. Ain't bad. And Depth Guard are going to be able to fight very happily here for the most part. They'll chew on the Tithe and the Skeleton Warriors. The Crypt Horrors are a little too focused on Silostra. Not terrible, though. She doesn't have healing, so fighting her there ain't a bad bit of business. Lots of Lots of pendulums. Pretty good value, man. Okay, maybe pendulum is good again. I mean, it got nerfed a long time ago. And people have not really been using it since then. I mean, arguably, though, it was just straight up broken. So maybe people can use it and do good with it. Dire Wolves and the Dire Pack. This is kind of weird. Look at the fight breaking out here. So the Dire Wolves, kind of in these pencil formations, being like munched on by the Scurvy Dogs here. Decade Mobs get up here. Feral Hawk's taking a little bit of a lead. Oh, Mortis Engine here. Filthy, filthy business. Goodbye Depth Guard. Goodbye Polearms. That's going to be a very dead formation. We got another Pendulum coming down. Oh my god. Not the most damage in the world from that Pendulum, but it's still been really effective considering it's pretty low quality units. Maybe on some more elite factions, that could be even more devastating. The Lobbian Lord should come fight Solastra. She would really not be very vulnerable here either. She's got like decent armor and really good combat stats, so she's very unlikely to get hit by Solastra to begin with. And the Polearms aren't that big of a threat, and the Depth Guard are pretty occupied by all the other chaff and the Cryptors in here. So she would be able to start wearing down Solastra, and the zombie summons, I don't think they're all that needed here. Oh my god, Vangeist's Revenge! It's finally happening, boys and girls. Oh, gross. To be fair, that was just 2 zombie units. Kind of just a rule of cool moment. Pretty fun, though. The Vampire Ghost is just, like, on death's bed now. I mean, they got this objective, which is fine. They're, like, trotting out Rotting Prometheans and Animated Hulks. They're just not winning decisively enough. And losing to the Vampire Counts is just not good. Vampire Counts, if they're up, they're winning. Like, Vampire Counts can be playing from pretty substantial deficits and still be winning sometimes. So, seeing this situation on the battlefield now is looking pretty grim. The Black Knights being left to get shot at a little too long. You know, gotta be very aware of where fights might be wrapping up soon. Especially against gunline factions, because the second there's no more obstructions, like, all of the missiles will be firing, and they'll just tear you apart. Like, handguns for the Vampire Coast are really dangerous. They can get value real quick. I don't think they've been quite impactful enough to be able to make up for the situation, though. So I think the Vampire Counts will be fine. Bringing out some Hex Wraiths, some Bomber Bats up here. Saltlord Scuttlers, no less. Doing good damage. Just get away from Silastra for a bit. Just get rid of all these other units. The Mortis Engine is actually fairly good at wearing down stuff like Animated Hulks and Prometheans. Not its, like, favorite target in the world. But, like, still reasonable Spirit Leech value to be had here, basically. Or Mortis Engine value, I should say. These guys out of combat, they're just far enough away, so they're okay. These Animated Hulks, though, are going to start suffering. Like, you can see, whenever that Reliquary Corruption is proccing, it's actually doing some fairly substantial damage to them fairly quickly. It just piles on so fast. Bomb Bats trying to kill stuff here. Animated Hulks and Prometheans killing the Vargeists. Is there any way for Vampire Coast to get back in this? They did lose the number 2 again. The Mortis Engine took a little damage from something. Maybe Silastra was killing it. Oh, Blood Knight's getting on top of Silastra. This is over. Yeah, she's got 113 armor right now. I mean, 150 normally. So the Blood Knight's not hitting super effectively, but they've still got 19 armor piercing damage with a good bonus versus large of 22. That melee defense, or the melee attack, is just enough to get through Salastra's melee defense there. Vangeist Revenge coming down. Just not enough, dude. Vangeist is so sad. They need to buff it, honestly. I mean, it's so expensive. It's got such an insane wind-up time. If it just killed literally everything it touched, I think it would be pretty balanced still. Like, you know, killing cavalry, monsters, infantry, and just regular old infantry all equally effectively. I don't think it would be that big of a deal. You probably still wouldn't even see it all that much. Now, if it killed Esses too, that would be another, like, whole issue. But yeah, we're just gonna, we're gonna watch the unending tides of the vampire counts. Just take over this game. I've been looking for the Black Coach this whole time. It's been hanging out in here. Fighting the Prometheans and some summons. It's got its army, not army abilities, but passive abilities fully charged now. So, Perfect Vigor, 40% ward save, and 50% more AP. Pretty nutty. This thing can really snowball for you. It's a good unit. People need to be paying more attention to it. It's really good against factions like the Greenskins, and also the Demon factions, where its magic attacks and flaming damage can just really ruin some factions' best days. Lami and Vampire Lord got a lot of value using Pendulum there, which is pretty impressive. Very cool to see that particular spell for once. I mean, God, I can't remember the last time I've seen somebody using it. And to get that much value just casting Pendulum makes me think maybe it's worth checking out on a more regular basis. So I'm going to be experimenting with it a little bit. My boy Malagor on the Beastman's got it, so why not? Yeah, Blood Knights, doing good. Mortis Engines. Mortis Engines are just crazy. If you can't kill Mortis Engine, you're going to lose a game. Doesn't matter who you are, what faction you are. Mortis Engines can even outgrind Nurgle, just because it, you know, imbues magic damage on everything around it. Heals. The heal stacks on top of the Unholy Lodestone from the Corpse Cart. Not to mention the fact that there's invos and regeneration on a lot of units, so it gets real nasty real quick. What could Asbjorn do next time? I don't know about Silastra. Maybe. It's probably still just a terrible matchup. I mean, get rid of Denizens, get rid of Vangeist, and maybe what you bring is, here, I'll show you. I don't know how you build the army, but we can look at what lords are available and maybe figure out something that would work. Noctilus is probably just way too expensive. The Fleet Admirals wouldn't be bad. With the pistol, you get Black Periapt, and you can just, like, run this guy around. Try to avoid being sniped. Heal, or not heal, but recharge the winds, as well as use Opal Amulet whenever you're caught. Bring Tide Call and maybe Kraken's Pull. Kraken's Pull, actually, for sure. It's really good Overcast. It does so much damage, man. Like, the standard cast is pretty good, but Overcast is absolutely filthy, and because you're, because vampire counts blob so much, you could probably feasibly get some significant value out of Kraken's Pull with, like, one good, proc. Like a bunch of, Blood Knights or Graveguard, all stacked on top of a corpse card or something. You can just pop this on them and just do a disgusting amount of damage, and then move in and maybe be able to crumble them off before they can get any significant healing on top of all of that. Tide Call's really good at doing damage to chaff units, so You just use the standard form. You don't need to overcast it or anything. It'll just clear up all the crappy zombies and stuff. Which, for the Vampire Coast, is probably pretty important because, you know, they don't want their gun units getting hounded down by zombies and skeleton warriors. You can, although your deckhand, honestly, your deckhand mobs, they do probably beat zombies badly enough. Maybe you just go really wide against the vampire counts. I think the handguns are a good call. You bring pistol mobs to cap an objective early, back them up with like a couple animated hulks, perhaps. Maybe a rotting Promethean, but maybe a Carronade and a Scurvy Dog. I don't hate this. Just vet up the Scurvy Dog a little bit for extra stats, I guess. I do think Scurvy Dogs are really good in this matchup because they can, you know, unlike other Hound units that just run away, you know, I mean, they crumble out and, you know, it's not great that they're crumbling, but it's not the worst thing in the world. They usually get their value back, so this is a Hound unit worth bringing, and they'll be really good for countercharging Vargheists. Mournguls probably fall off pretty badly here. You probably still want a couple. But maybe you don't. Maybe you just bring the Night Terrors, and you just be happy with that. Because you're really trying to kill Graveguard. You've got Kraken's Pull for that. And you've got shooting. Like, Graveguard can hold for a long time, but they're not going to survive just, like, just pounds, or just thousands and thousands of bullets peppering them down, right? I like the Saltlord Scuttlers to some extent. They could be pretty risky. Vampire Counts have really good flyers, like, way better flyers than you have access to. Like, Luther Harkin could contest, but he's so expensive, and you have to get a caster in. It's going to leave you pretty thin in all the other meaningful departments. I don't know. Maybe something like that. You do probably want a couple Depth Guard for the late game, but I think the pole arms are probably just better. Ooh. That's a good idea, Tabith. I can do that, yeah. That'll be my next video. My next standalone. I'll start taking notes on it. And I'll get it out ASAP. That shouldn't be too hard. It should be pretty easy to talk about them. I feel like I've played enough of the game to be able to speak on every faction at least a little bit. I mean, off the top of my head, I can tell you the hardest ones. Skaven, Grand Cathay. High Elves are fairly new player friendly. Tomb Kings, pretty foreboding just because of the bad cap weight. Vampire Counts, I would say, because they don't have any missiles, but they're fairly forgiving with all the healing. Demons of Chaos are not beginner friendly at all. And that'd probably be about it. You know, most of the factions are reasonable. But yeah. Cathay and Skaven probably being the toughest, just period. Like, not even a question in my eyes. All the other factions have, like, either, like, really forgiving, like, styles of play, like Khorne. They've got really good magic, like Lizardmen and High Elves that can, like, make up and bring you back from the brink. Tons of heals, like the Vampire Counts. Just an ungodly amount of accurate shooting, like the Wood Elves. Kislev with all the Unbreakable and stuff. just massive, just unending tides of high leadership units for the Dowie. Oh, Bretonnia's not new player friendly either. So, Skaven, Cathay, and Bretonnia. They'll be the toughest ones, probably. I'll think about it some more. I'll come up with a proper list. I can do that. Yeah, my word, Tabith. You'll see. You'll get it. It'll probably be like a week before I can compile it all. I'm going to be playing in some tournaments throughout the rest of this week, and I've got some plans I'm making with family. But in the meantime, in the middle of doing all that, I'll be writing stuff down for it. And that's going to be it for the stream, by the way, guys. Got a lot of good games in. Went a little longer than I thought it would, but yeah, I guess I think I'd already gone through and gotten rid of most of the replays we'd already seen. There were a couple that snuck in there, but I didn't mind recasting them. Never really a bad idea. Sometimes the second time around, you can, you know, getting some, like, fresh eyes and perspective on some stuff, you can, you know, spot some new areas in which somebody can, like, you know, like, focus up their play. Stuff like that. Learn something new, you know. I learned a lot of new stuff from watching new player tournaments. Like watching Pendulum perform really well there in that last game. It's got me thinking. But anyways, I'll see you guys later. See you next time. Peace out. Take care, folks.